So, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you all to the June I can't even read my own writing here. 28th meeting of 2022, the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. First item on the agenda is invocation, and we had invited Pastor Ralph Nevin. Good morning.
Good morning, Pastor.
Hey, good morning to you all. Let's pray together. Lord, as we approach your presence and your throne this morning, we have much to be thankful for. As we will be celebrating Independence Day this next week, we are so thankful for our country. We thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy by living in this great country. And we also thank you, Lord, for the material blessings that we enjoy. And likewise, Lord, we are thankful for the county that we live in. We just have so much to offer, and it's probably a blessing that we all take for granted. But, Lord, we're thankful for that. But as we're thankful for our county, thankful for these men that have been appointed, elected to be commissioners, I pray for wisdom for them as they have to make decisions, as they give leadership to our government at this time. And I pray, Lord, that you'll just help them to make good decisions, and I pray that each one of them would seek your face and your wisdom, especially when it comes to making hard decisions. And Lord, we know that the Bible says that the heart of the king or appointed leaders is in the hands of the Lord, and he turns it whithersoever he will. So Lord, guide these men, direct them. And I pray, Father, that they would take serious the responsibility and the stewardship that you have entrusted to them. And we'll thank you for it. In Christ's name we pray and ask it all. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Nevin. So the next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda as presented?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So public service announcements, I do have, we are quickly approaching election season, and I can assure you the five of us are very happy that that's going to be over soon, one way or the other. Just want to let all the citizens know there was a sample ballot issue. The vendor that works for the County Elections Board sent out some sample ballots to people from the wrong party. That is being addressed, and corrected ballots have been resent to the proper addresses. So if you received a sample ballot that didn't match up with your party affiliation, they want to apologize for that, and they've tried to correct that as soon as possible. Also, today is the last day that you can change your party affiliation. For anybody out there that would desire to change their party before this primary election season starts, the deadline for that is July the 12th. You have to go in person and make that change at this point in time, but today is the deadline for that at the end of the day. So, and early voting starts July the 7th through the 14th. The difference this year in Calvert County is we're going to have 3 early voting locations, one in Lusby at the Community Center, in Prince Frederick at the Election Board where we've always held early voting, and then one in the north right behind Fairview Library. There's a temporary trailer in that back lot. So you can go to any early voting station to early vote from the 7th through the 14th. I don't know what the hours are exactly now, 9 to 8 p.m. or something like that. So last year there was a law passed in Annapolis that requires a certain number of early voting locations based on your population. So based on our population, we had to add at least one more, and we didn't feel like it would be fair, to have one south and not north. So we decided that we would have 3 so that everybody would be treated fairly. So that starts July the 7th through the 14th. And of course, primary day is July the 19th, and we encourage everybody to vote. It's very important. We have about 65 or 66,000 voters in Calvert County, and normally we do a pretty good job of turnout, but we can always do better. So we strongly encourage everybody to get out and vote. And we won't be meeting next week, well, between now and the 4th of July, so just want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July and make sure you celebrate in whatever manner you want, and make sure you're safe and your family's all safe. So that's all I have for now. The next item on the agenda is proclamations. College of Southern Maryland nursing graduates and Commissioner McConkey, and we have Dr. Murphy with us today, and we might have some graduates.
We have Catherine Humphreys with us.
You have to get up to the microphone, please, and introduce yourselves. And
All right, I am Maureen Murphy from the College of Southern Maryland, and
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Catherine Humphreys. I'm a recent graduate. I've been a lifelong resident of Calvert in Prince Frederick. I have plans to work at Johns Hopkins in August to work on their psychiatric unit. I've also been a volunteer in bereavement with Calvert Hospice here for 7 years as well. So my goal is to ultimately be a nurse practitioner for adolescents and youth struggling with mental illness.
so if you want to do some work on the side, the 5 of us could use some kind of psychiatric evaluation and support.
Some more than others, yeah. Yeah.
we are very proud of Catherine and her contributions. She also is the recipient of multiple associate degrees from us. She's a lifelong learner, and her journey has not been a straight line. She's worked as a CNA as well to get herself through school, so we're really proud of her. And she is one of 17 Calvert County residents who earned nursing degrees this year out of 69, so I think that's a pretty darn good percentage. And Commissioner Conkey, I want to thank you so much. You were there, you got to see it. It's just a wonderful, heady experience to see the nursing getting.
Sure is. Well, come on up and we'll read this proclamation for you. And I did go to college there, too.
There you go.
So, all right, whereas the Board of Calvert County Commissioners of Calvert County desire to recognize citizens who are dedicated to improving the quality of life for Calvert County citizens, and whereas nursing professionals are an invaluable part of the healthcare system and unselfishly give their very best to patients every single day, exhibiting dedication, patience, stamina, compassion, and critical thinking. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic placed a significant strain on healthcare providers throughout the world, causing nursing shortages everywhere. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners desires to recognize your willingness to join the nursing professionals at such an unprecedented time and celebrate your success with pride and respect. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County that we give our appreciation and thanks to the 2022 College of Southern Maryland Nursing Candidate Graduates of Calvert County. Be it further proclaimed that the appreciation of all Calvert County citizens is hereby extended to the nursing candidates as we join together to celebrate their achievements, given under our hands and seal this 28th day of June 2022.
We all scoot this way, stand up a little bit. Awesome, awesome. Here we go. 1, 2, 1 more. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm not going yet. Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Next item on the agenda, we have another proclamation for retirement for Kathy Richards. Commissioner Weems.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Please come forward.
So hi, my name is, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Melinda Gaines. I am the program specialist at Southern Pines Senior Center. I have had the pleasure of working with Kathy Richards for about 3.5 years. Kathy Richards was or is still until Thursday, the food service coordinator at our center. And as you can imagine, her job, her role at the center is an essential part of all that we do in senior centers in Calvert County. Kathy was responsible for making sure that every detail that went into providing our senior community with safe food, nutritious food, was done. And I couldn't have imagined having a better team member for that. For many folks, those meals were the only balanced meal that they got for the day. For some, it was the only meal that they actually ate with someone else. And as you can imagine, that combats isolation, loneliness, those types of things in our senior community. But more than feeding their physical bodies, Kathy also fed their souls. Her generosity it's just unbelievable to watch that, her time that she'd spend with the seniors and actually just to see what's going on in their lives. That empathy that she had for them oftentimes led her to connecting them to resources because she knew their stories that actually benefited their lives. So, we are going to miss her presence at Southern Pines. However, we are extremely happy for her in her next chapter. When I think about Kathy, I see all the qualities of a servant leader, and those qualities are going to lead her in her next season of her life, and we are going to miss her. So, you're very welcome.
That was very sweet. Miss Kathy, would you like to come forward and let me read this proclamation to you, madam? Whereas, Catherine Richards, Food Service Coordinator for the Department of Community Resources, Office on Aging Division, is retiring on July 5th, 2022, after dedicating 30 years of faithful and loyal service to the citizens of Calvert County and the state of Maryland. And whereas Catherine's admirable career began on July 23rd, 1991, as a bus driver for the Public Transportation Division. She accepted a position as the Food Transport Site Aide for the Office on Aging Division on December 26, 1994, and was promoted to Food Services Worker on July 10, 1995. On July 16, 2001, Catherine was promoted to Food Service Coordinator, where she would serve until her retirement. Catherine has provided faithful and exemplary service during her career, thereby gaining tremendous respect, trust, admiration from Calvert County citizens and fellow constituents who had the pleasure to work with her. And whereas Catherine's accomplishments include being recognized as Calvert County Government's Employee of the Month for April 2017, as well as being named the Morning Person on December 8, 2008 by NBC News, which honors individuals who make a positive difference in their communities. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County presents this proclamation as a tribute to Catherine's outstanding accomplishments during her distinguished career, thereby recognizing that this amazing woman who strives to improve the quality of life for all Calvert County citizens. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County that the appreciation of all Calvert County citizens is hereby extended to Catherine Richards on her retirement after 30 years of reliable and commendable public service. Be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County joins with the community and Catherine's co-workers, family, and friends in conveying best wishes for a long, healthy, and happy retirement with continued success in all her future endeavors. Given under our hands and sealed this 28th day of June, 2022. Well deserved, Miss Kathy. You got a standing ovation.
So the last item under proclamations is it's National Parks and Recreation Month. Commissioner Hart.
Good morning, sir. Would you like to, can you hear me? No.
Yep.
Like to get it started?
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Bob Branham. I'm the Deputy Director with Parks and Recreation. So I'll be brief. So I have 2 messages of gratitude this morning. So the first is to thank the 5 Commissioners, Mark and Linda, for your support. We truly appreciate that as a department and as a team. And that extends to the other departments of county government. I don't think we could get anything done that we have these grand visions and designs for without everyone's support. And that doesn't go unnoticed by all the people behind me on our team, as well as the people still in the field, because as you know, we don't close, right? So my second message is to my team. So if you can hear me from behind, or hopefully some people are able to watch, the 2 words that I'm about to say usually are an afterthought in an email or just to be polite. But I truly want to say thank you to the team. You know, we're dealing with some difficult times. We are significantly short of staff while we're gaining on it, yet we don't close. We're open 364 days a year for service, and that last day, Christmas Day, we still have staff that have to go in and take care of animals. We open at 5 a.m., we close at 11 p.m. We are 25% short of staff as a department, and as a department that sometimes can employ up to 400 people, that's pretty significant. We don't close. So there are a lot of Bob-isms, and they make fun of me for it. One is one team, one mission, and I mean that. I don't call them coworkers, I don't call them colleagues, I call them teammates. And they exemplify that day in and day out. So I make a call to one area, they show up at another. They don't work in those divisions. There's 5 divisions. We don't see it as such. You guys probably do, and everybody that reads about it on paper see us as 5 divisions. We see ourselves as one team, and anybody can do any job on this team. So without going on and on, to my team, thank you. Thank you so much. It's truly appreciated, and all the kudos that you get are well-deserved. So you can't focus on those few all heck moments. Focus on those many, many attaboys, and we'll just keep doing what we do. And we'll be there, we'll be open, and we'll be ready for the public. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon Nazal, Director of Parks and Recreation. I can't say it any better than Bob just did, but big thank you to our entire team and the entire county organization and the citizens that support everything that we do every single day, trying to serve our citizens and serve the people that come and visit all of our park facilities day in and day out. We appreciate everything that everyone comments and provides us in regards to our parks and our services that we're able to provide. And just as a little thank you to our commissioners, as well as County Administrator Willis and Deputy County Administrator Vassallo, I have a little something for you guys as a little bit of a thank you for all the support that you've provided us over the years. And then as I'm bringing those up, if any of our team would like to come up to the front while we accept the proclamation.
Good morning. Mark Lindbergh, Sports Coordinator. Again, thank you for all the support you provide us. Without you guys or your support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Thank you.
Morning, Nate Smith, Recreation Division Chief. Thank you, guys.
And I'm Karen Molinas, Natural Resources Division Chief, and really proud to be part of this team.
Sean Meredith, the Park and Safety Division Chief, and I just want to say thank you as well to everybody.
Nola Formy Duval, Executive Administrative Assistant.
Kirsten Perry, I'm Special Facilities Division Chief, and thank you all.
Alex Edwards, I'm the Volunteer and Grant Coordinator. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Detoria Jacks, Business Manager. Thank you all.
Well, I can't top that. But what I can say is, so my son plays 3 sports. So we are there all the time. In fact, Zach right now is at a basketball camp, even though he can't play, but he thinks he can. So we have that argument. He's built like an offensive lineman. I'm like, son, it just doesn't translate, but but he loves it and he's having a great time. And my perspective is a little different because when you sit on the field, hey, commish, blah 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 blah, I don't get any of that. Every once in a blue moon, it would be something people truly are enjoying themselves at the parks. The experience is always great. And, you know, it's so important because it's part of your life. When you look back on your family and you look at the games they played, you don't really think about, you know, what maybe park you were at or where. You think about the whole experience. You know, you remember the game. You remember what happened in that. You folks make that happen. Without you folks, it doesn't happen. The beaches, the everything. I mean, it's so much reason why people are here because of that way of life here. And it doesn't go without you guys. It really doesn't. And I kid you not, I don't get beat up. And it's easy to beat me up. I mean, it's, you know, it's the easy target. And I don't. I get so many thanks. And they so appreciate this. Like, oh, you know, and they know you guys by name, you know, which is great. You know, I mean, it's so, I know in the whole board, we so thank you for what you do. And I know the community does. Like I say, you make my job easy. So thank you. And so we'll get here with, whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Calvert County, Maryland, and are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, aid in the prevention of chronic disease, and help improve the overall mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community, provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature, improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve air quality, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife, thereby proving that these areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and Calvert County, Maryland recognizes the benefits derived from its vast parks and recreation resources. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners that the month of July be known as Parks and Recreation Month in Calvert County, Maryland. Be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County encourages all citizens to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of our local Department of Parks and Recreation, given under our hands and sealed this 28th day, June 22nd, signed by all 5 commissioners.
I can make it work.
That's professional media word.
Here we go. 1, 2, 1. Awesome.
Congratulations. Thank you. So, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Oh, yeah, really. Thank you very much. So while we're talking about Parks and Rec, I do want to announce that because we were able to hire some additional lifeguards, Huntingtown Kings Landing Pool will be open for limited hours this season. So you need to go to the website to find out those days and times that the facility will be open. And we're still trying to hire lifeguards. Anybody out there has the ability and to serve, we'd appreciate you signing up. And the other thing I need to do before I forget is I did misspeak earlier, which happens when I don't wear my glasses. Early voting starts at 7 a.m., not 9, runs from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at all 3 locations. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is appointments. Deputy Director Vasallo.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Vasallo. You have 2 rounds of appointments this morning. The first one's to the Waterman's Wharf Oversight Committee. Staff is requesting that you reappoint Dale Weems, Steve Zimmerman, Thomas R. Zinn, and Gerald Day And as the county representative, Thomas Jones to the Waterman's Wharf Oversight Committee, and you'll have no vacancies following those appointments.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we reappoint Dale Weems, Steve Zimmerman, Thomas Zinn, and we appoint Thomas Jones as the Calvert County representative and Gerald Day from District 1. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, your second round of appointments is to the Social Services Advisory Board. Staff is requesting that we reappoint Melanie Dorenzi and Barbara R. Keat to the Social Services Advisory Board, and you'll have 4 vacancies that will be available.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we reappoint Melanie Denise and Barbara Keat to the Social Services Advisory Board. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business. Item 1, Department of Public Works.
Morning.
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 Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Heather Magger, Division Chief for Solid Waste Division.
James Ritter, the Deputy Director for Enterprise Funds.
And today I'm presenting a memo for the Citizen Tire Recycling Collection event. In the background, the Solid Waste Division has previously hosted no-cost tire recycling collection events funded by the Maryland Department of Environment for Calvert County residents, businesses, and agricultural farms. Discussion: MDE allocates funding for counties in the state of Maryland to utilize for tire programs, including tire recycling collection events. This year, MDE has partnered with Maryland Environmental Services to offer Maryland counties the opportunity to host a citizen scrap tire drop-off day. Solid Waste Division staff has requested July 30th, 2022 as Calvert County's event date. An intergovernmental agreement between MES and Calvert County has been issued and must be signed prior to the event. Advertising for this event will take place through the Calvert County's Communications and Media Relations Department. Fiscal impact. The fiscal impact of this tire collection event includes a loss of revenue equal to $33 per ton of scrap tires collected. If the collection event reaches MDE's maximum reimbursement amount of $16,500, it would result in a loss of $2,792.46 in revenue. In addition, if the collection event exceeds the reimbursement rate, the county would pay $195 per ton for each ton of tires in excess of the maximum allotted reimbursement. Based on collection totals for past tire events, it is not anticipated that this collection event will exceed the maximum allotted reimbursement. In conclusion, the Solid Waste Division recommends the Board of County Commissioners signs the intergovernmental agreement with Maryland Environmental Service to allow for participation in the 2022 MDE-funded Citizen Scrap Tire Drop-Off Day.
So we recently did one for agriculture. On the top of your head, do you know how many tons we
I
collected?
think it was around 35
35
tons.
tons. This is a one-day event
This is a one-day event.
for July 30th for anybody.
For
except for
resident,
commercial.
yeah,
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 except for
it's
commercial.
non-commercial, right.
Right, non-commercial. Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve and authorize the President to sign the intergovernmental agreement with Maryland Environmental Service on behalf of the Board.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we sign the intergovernmental agreement with Maryland Environmental Service on behalf of the board. Any discussion on that motion?
Yes, sir. Quick
sir.
question, does that include tires with rims or only without rims?
Rims are fine. Tires less than 5 feet in diameter, though.
Less than 5 feet in diameter? Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Good question.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda under new business is the Office of the County Administrator, approval of the Calvert Marine Museum Board of Governors fiscal '23 budget.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jeff Murray, Director of the Calvert Marine Museum. Here today seeking your approval for the Calvert Marine Museum's FY23 Board of Governors budget, which is a special revenue fund under the county. Background. In 1979, the county assumed control and ownership of the Calvert Marine Museum as a division of county government. Resolution 22-79, the enabling legislation and operating document, defines the purposes and goals of the museum, establishes a board of governors, and authorizes an internal budget using funds generated by the museum, among other things. The Calvert Marine Museum's Board of Governors is comprised of 15 people and is appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. Enclosed for your review and approval is the proposed Board of Governors FY 2023 budget request for the Calvert Marine Museum. The Board of Governors approved this proposed budget at their May 25th, 2022 meeting. Discussion. The Board of Governors budget incorporates earned revenue from admissions, program fees, which includes camps, boats, excursions, field trips, and a number of other things, and an annual budgeted transfer of funds from the Calvert Marine Museum Society, the museum's nonprofit that supports the institution. The Board of Governors budget is well on its way to a full recovery from the pandemic period, and this budget conservatively reflects post-COVID admission and overall education program projections. The budget is audited each year by the same firm that audits all county funds, and an annual income and expense statement is sent to the Department of Budget and Finance. Although the county serves as the pay agent for employees shown in the budget, all salary and benefit expenses are reimbursed to the county by the museum. This is a balanced budget of $633,624, funded by earned revenue, donations, and a transfer from the CMM Society. The first page is a summary of the BO Board of Governors expenditure budget, followed by detail by expenditure categories. The next page is a summary of the revenue sources. The Board of Governors budget is supported solely by earned income and private funding and does not impact the county general fund. Fiscal impact is none because there are no county tax dollars involved. And conclusion recommendation, we request that the Board of County Commissioners approve the Board of Governors FY 2023 budget as recommended by the Calvert Marine Museum Board of Governors.
Questions? So, I have to say, we talk about this all the time, but as a commissioner, we get invited to the volunteer appreciation dinner. And the amount of volunteerism that goes on at the Calvert Marine Museum is incredible. We talk about the fire service and the volunteers there, but Jeff has a staff there of volunteers that's 52 weeks a year as a volunteer. And that's a great credit to you, Jeff, and your staff that these people feel welcomed and needed. And so it's not just them. You know, I think I give you credit too for how you handle your volunteers.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. There are more than a few of those.
Yes.
And they impact the county and the museum in an amazing way.
Oh, the cost of operation would double if you didn't have those volunteers out there.
Absolutely. We're 500 strong, and of course, not all 500 work 40 hours a week, but there's a lot of them.
But you see the interaction with everybody. You know, we sit back like us when we show up. We see them. It's just like they're
It's
at
family.
home. Yeah, they're so
they're
comfortable with. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you can see they enjoy it. You know that it's reflective. It really is.
They're an integral part of our team.
Mm-hmm.
We could not do it without them.
And we like to come to the event, but there's something that lands on the same night every time.
We're going to work that out.
I can't remember what it was, but every
We won't do it on a Tuesday anymore.
Yeah, right.
Might be
We had a public
that
hearing.
budget thing.
Yeah, we had a public
Yeah, right. Yeah, like,
just a little budget issue. Yes, sir, Mr. Administrator.
Commissioners, Mark Willis, County Administrator. I will say that yesterday, Linda Vasalis set up an intern luncheon. We have 23 interns that work for the county. One of those individuals works for, now as an intern for Jeff, but has worked as a volunteer at the Marine Museum since he was 14.
Oh, wow.
And now is going to school and wants to be a paleontologist and is already writing papers on the subject in collaboration with museum staff. That's the benefit also, not just the volunteerism, but the fact that we can kind of work them into our society and help them with their future as well.
While we're on the subject real quick, I will add that our volunteer council raises money and gives $750 scholarships to our young volunteers who are going to use that for their college expenses every year. Every year there's between 2 and 10 of those. So really amazing stuff.
It is amazing, and they don't get enough acknowledgement, so I wanted to take the opportunity because it is amazing.
I appreciate that, and we appreciate your support.
You know, it's funny to watch it grow. You know, my brother always loved going down there. We were little kids. He was always like this shark tooth fanatic, trying to find stuff, and you know, just going through and looking at the things. From when we were real little, and just to watch how, you know, well, I'll be 54, so 45.
That's a lot of
plus years.
math.
Yeah, and it's still going. It's stronger than ever.
I will tell you, it's interesting to hear the stories of all the Calvert County residents and Southern Maryland residents who have grown up with this museum.
Mhm.
It's really impacted their lives.
Well, down our way, there wasn't a whole lot, you know, if it was raining or what have you, because if it was nice, we were out fishing or crabbing or something, and it was always, can we go to the museum? What kid says, let's go to the museum? My brother did.
I will tell you that when it rains, our museum store does very well.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody say.
And you're not here asking for money very often, so
I try not to, sir.
that's the best part.
People from around the world come to Washington DC to visit the tourist sites, while many people here locally don't go to Washington DC, or many people haven't been up in the Washington Monument. So I know I haven't been down to the Marine Museum but a couple of times.
Oh my gosh.
And I encourage everybody to go down there. The place is phenomenal. If you're a Calvert resident, St. Mary's resident, anybody down here, people come from all over this country to come visit the Calvert Marine Museum. And if you haven't been there, please go. It's definitely worth a day. It's a great, great place. Thank you.
Commercial's over.
I appreciate it. You know, it's great, and we do feel almost universally loved. So that's a great situation to be in.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the Board of Governors FY 2023 budget as recommended.
Second?
A motion and a second that we approve the Board of Governors budget as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There you go, Jeff.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Have a great day.
You too.
You too.
I will see you later.
So the next item on the agenda is consent. We have two consent items today. Department of Public Safety, Fourth Amendment to the contract between the Board of County Commissioners of Calvert County and American Tower LLC, and temporary right of entry and staging agreement. And item two, Office of the County Attorney, tax credits for conservation lots. Is there any objection to the two items presented today under consent? Hearing none, those items will be adopted as presented. Next item on the agenda is old business. Item one, Office of the County Attorney, Budget Adjustment BA002. Mr. County Attorney.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
John Norris, County Attorney. One of the first things I'm going to ask for is that we rename old business to former business. As I age, it gets a little tender.
You getting up there?
If it doesn't bother me, it shouldn't bother you.
There's not as many trees in the forest these days. This is bringing back a public hearing that happened on the 14th of July regarding 14th of June, regarding budget adjustment BA002, impaired driver and operator prevention measures. This is an extension of what you will see later in old business as the amendments to Chapter 86, and you'll see an amendment to the work rules in that provision. This is for the other agencies that receive taxpayer dollars to purchase vehicles, equipment, and vessels. The purpose of this, the background in the memo is the taxpayers of Calvert County fund the purchase of vehicles, vessels, and equipment for use by county employees and employees of other agencies providing public services. In the discussion, this proposal was the subject of public hearing on June 14th and proposes to require those that receive county taxpayer funds for vehicles, vessels, and equipment to adopt standards and policies by December 31, 2022, meeting the following minimum requirements. 1, its officials, its officers, employees, directors, and agents shall inform their supervisor immediately when involved in an incident that results in personal injury, damage to a vehicle, vessel, or equipment, or damage to any other property while driving or operating. A vehicle or vessel owned or acquired by or acquired with funds from the county. B, a personal vehicle while conducting employer business. Or C, heavy equipment. Number 2, that all operators of vehicles, vessels, or equipment who did or could have contributed to an incident shall A, fully cooperate with responding law enforcement and emergency personnel without leaving the scene unless instructed to do so or is necessary for emergency medical assistance, and B, submit to a prompt drug and alcohol test to refute the presumption of being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or both. 3, that refusal to submit to drug or alcohol testing shall result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. 4, that restitution and reimbursement of all costs, charges, and expenses arising from the incident may be sought by the county or its insurer regardless of then current employment status. And 5, that all incidents be promptly reported to the county's risk manager in a manner and with such detail as can be provided while compliant with all applicable laws, ordinances, regulations, resolutions, and policies. The fiscal impact, the potential savings is incalculable, and we say the potential savings because this is to reimburse the taxpayers for incidents where vehicles are damaged because somebody's driving impaired or operating impaired. Conclusion recommendation, staff requests that the board pass a motion to adopt and sign the resolution approving budget adjustment 002 and requiring the recipients of additional funding to adopt conforming policies and procedures not later than December 31, 2022. The record was closed at the public hearing and there was no comment that was provided.
So I do have a question. Under 2B, it says submit to a prompt. What does prompt mean?
It is a standard that is to be employed when determining whether or not the agency adopts conforming policy. So we expect that the agency that has to adopt this define prompt in their regulation, and the county commissioners would determine whether or not that is sufficiently prompt. Not being able to leave the scene except for emergency medical assistance would indicate that prompt would be at the scene, or should be at the scene, barring absent.
Because recently, an incident, I just heard the term 2 hours seemed to be a legal definition of
Why don't we just say
when
it's
that
seen?
test has to be submitted.
Well, I believe that resulted in the court throwing out the test because it was not considered. It was not sufficiently prompt and there were intervening circumstances.
The only reason I asked what prompt is determined by, because prompt's not definitive. So prompt for me and prompt for you could be two different things.
Yes. So what we anticipate is that those who receive this additional dollar in funding will submit their conforming policies for review by county staff and presentation to the board to determine whether or not it meets your requirements. Because frankly, most of the local taxpayer funding flows through the Board of County Commissioners with varying degrees of your control. You have to fund the Board of Education maintenance of effort. You have to fund the Sheriff's Office at level to be able to perform their constitutional duties. But that does not always mean that the additional funding you provide is not discretionary. It is. And we expect that they'll have policies that they'll propose that are consistent with keeping the taxpayers whole.
And just for the citizens out there, again, this was triggered because of some recent events, and we reviewed our policy, wanted to make sure we had those things in place that we could take appropriate actions at the time to make sure that, we were doing our due diligence and protecting citizens' property at the end of the day. So that was the trigger for all of this.
And
Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Ms. Davis will be up because you're not only just imposing this on outside agencies, you're also imposing it upon ourselves. So Ms. Davis will be up to present that.
Correct. Yeah, we're not asking anybody to do anything we wouldn't do ourselves. So that's where we are. Any other discussion? Motions?
I'd like to make a motion adopting and approving budget adjustment BA 002 and signing the related resolution.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt and approve budget adjustment BA 002 and sign the related resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. County Attorney. Next item on the agenda are our old business, Department of Human Resources, Police Accountability Board update. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners. Dina Davis, Human Resources Deputy Director. Background. On April 10th, 2021, the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021, Police Discipline and Law Enforcement Programs and Procedures, was enacted by the Maryland General Assembly over a gubernatorial veto. Based on this law, the Board of County Commissioners, BOCC, is required to establish a Police Accountability Board, PAB, and an Administrative Charging Committee, ACC, and appoint a member to the Trial Board. The BOCC is focused on attaining a balanced representation of diverse backgrounds and experiences to execute the powers and duties associated with the PAB and ACC. Members of the Calvert County Democratic Central Committee, the Calvert County Republican Central Committee, the Calvert County NAACP, and the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 109 reviewed and ranked applications. Discussion. The PAB shall consist of 9 members selected by the BOCC, including a chairperson. The ACC shall consist of 5 members, the chairperson of the PAB or a member of the PAB designated by the chairperson, 2 members appointed by the county commissioners, and 2 members appointed by the PAB. The BOCC is to appoint to the trial board an actively serving or retired administrative law judge or a retired judge of the district court or a circuit court. Fiscal impact. Funding has been approved in the budget for stipends for the appointees. Conclusion recommendation. By July 1, 2022, state law requires that the BOCC appoint 9 members to the PAB as recommended, 2 members to the ACC as recommended, 1 member to the trial board as recommended. We do have a brief PowerPoint presentation as a reminder to the commissioners and the citizens regarding the Police Accountability Board. Next slide, please. Next slide. The Calvert County Police Accountability Board. The Board of County Commissioners must establish the membership, establish the budget and staff, appoint a chair with relevant experience, and establish the procedures for record keeping. Next slide, please. The role of the PAB is to hold quarterly meetings with heads of law enforcement agencies and work with law enforcement agencies and county government to improve matters of policing in the community. Appoint members to the Administrative Charging Committee and any trial boards. Receive complaints of police misconduct filed by the public. Next slide, please. Review quarterly outcomes of disciplinary matters considered by charging committees, and by December 31st of each year, submit a report to the Board of County Commissioners and recommend policy changes that would improve police accountability in the county. Next slide. Next slide, thank you. The Administrative Charging Committee, the ACC, their role is to review findings of a law enforcement agency's investigation, review any body camera footage that may be relevant to the matters covered in the complaint of misconduct, determine whether or not to administratively charge the police officer who is the subject of the investigation. Next slide. If the police officer is charged, the ACC is to recommend discipline in accordance with the officer's agency's disciplinary matrix, issue a written opinion that describes in details its findings, determinations, and recommendations, and forward the written opinion to the chief of the law enforcement agency, the police officer, and the complainant. Next slide, thank you. The PAB membership shall be comprised of 9 members, and to the extent practicable, 2 members shall be retired sworn law enforcement officers who retired in good standing at least 5 years prior to the appointment to the PAB, with sufficient time and responsibility in a Maryland law enforcement agency or federal law enforcement agency to adequately represent a law enforcement perspective. Not less than 3 members shall be from minority populations within the county, and 1 member should be a mental health practitioner. In addition, at least 50% of the membership of the PAB shall be women. The membership of the PAB shall reflect the racial, gender, and cultural diversity of Calvert County. There shall be not less than 2 members of the PAB from each county commissioner district. The chair of the accountability board must have relevant experience as required by state law. The length of term of appointment for PAB members is 3 years, though initial terms are staggered, and no member is eligible for reappointment after 6 years of service on the board. Any member of the PAB may be removed when the best interest of the community or the PAB would not be served by continued membership. PAB members must be eligible to sit as a juror, meeting an adaptation of the requirements of Maryland Annotated Code Courts and Judicial Proceedings, Section 8-103. Not having been convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment exceeding 1 year, and received a sentence of imprisonment for more than 1 year unless pardoned, shall not have a charge pending for a crime punishable by imprisonment exceeding 1 year, and subject to reasonable accommodation in accordance with the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, must be able to comprehend spoken and written English and speak and write English proficiently enough to complete a standard form of application. The ACC membership is comprised of 5 members by state law. The chair of the PAB or his or her designee is a member of the ACC. The county commissioners must appoint 2 citizens to the ACC. The PAB must appoint 2 citizens to the ACC. The ACC will elect its chair from among its members annually at its first meeting on or after July 1st, and the chair of the charging committee shall serve no more than consecutive terms as chairperson. We would like to thank the following community groups. They reviewed and received the applications. Calvert County Democratic Central Committee, Ms. Renita Alexander. From the Calvert County Republican Central Committee, Mr. J.P. Shirkus. From the Calvert County NAACP, Mr. Malcolm Funn. And from the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 109, Lieutenant David Canning. This slide shows the membership recommendations. Lisa Baroni from Voter District 1 for a term of 1 year. Suzanne Benedict, Voter District 3 for a term of 2 years. Brian Cedar from Voter District 2 for a term of 3 years. Norman Dorn from Voter District 3 to the Charging Committee, term of 3 years. Alfonso Hawkins from Voter District 2 for a term of 1 year. Quentin Jones Jr. from Voter District 2 for a term of 2 years. Susan Justice from Voter District 2 for a term of 1 year. Dawn Lister from Voter District 1 for a term of 2 years. Wilson Perrin, chairperson of the PAB for a term of 3 years from Voter District 2. Stacy Stump from Voter District 1 to the Charging Committee for a term of 3 years. Can you go back one slide, please? Sorry, we're missing a slide, but regarding the trial board membership. The Police Accountability Board legislation, the Board of County Commissioners has 1 appointment to the trial board. By state law, that appointment must be an actively serving or retired administrative law judge or a retired judge of the district court or circuit court. The recommendation is to appoint Larry Lampson to the trial board. No other applicant met the criteria set by state law for the trial board. Today we're before you for this requested action to appoint 9 members to the PAB, 8 members to the PAB, 2 members to the ACC, and 1 member to the trial board as recommended.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, discussion, motions?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to appoint the following citizens to the Calvert County Police Accountability Board for a one-year term: Lisa Marie Ireland Baroni, Alfonso W. Hawkins, and Susan P. Justice. For a two-year term, Suzanne Benedict, Quentin Urban Jones Jr., and Dawn S. Lister. For a three-year term, Brian Cedar, and as chair for a three-year term, Wilson H. Perrin. Move to appoint to the Calvert County Administrative Charging Committee for three-year terms Stacy Stump and Norman Philip Dorn. And I also move to appoint Larry D. Lamson for a three-year term to the trial board established at state law.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. I'm not going to repeat the entire motion. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I want to take this opportunity to thank our staff, the county attorney's office, human resources. This was quite an effort for something that was new, we'd never done before. Nobody else has done this before, but I want to thank them, and I especially want to thank the citizens. We tried our very best to engage with citizens and get feedback. We had, I don't even know now how many town hall meetings and emails and conversations, and we even appointed a citizen review committee to review the applications. I think we had 60 applications.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, come in. So there was a lot of interest, and really want to thank the citizens. As you've seen, we've got a plug in the budget. We don't know if that's going to be enough or if it's too much, but we'll have to make whatever amendments we need to make as we work through this, because nobody knows what it's going to really entail. But mostly I want to thank the citizens for their involvement, because we couldn't have got to where we are today without them. And after all, this is their process to make sure that we hold our police officers accountable and that everybody understands and been treated fairly and equally. So again, I want to thank all the citizens and staff for all their efforts, and we'll keep continuing on. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is Department of Human Resources revision of risk management and safety manual. Dina.
Background: the Board of County Commissioners directed the Department of Human Resources to revise the county's current post-accident drug and alcohol testing procedures. Discussion: the Risk Management and Safety Manual provides a standard for county policy and safety standards and serves as a county-wide resource for both employees and supervisors. Section 9.09 of the manual includes post-vehicle accident procedures. The premise of the impaired operator prevention policy is to refute the presumption of being under the influence for a county employee involved in a vehicle accident. The new language for the policy shall be as follows. 9.09 post-accident vehicle accident procedures. Impaired operator prevention policy shall be as follows. 1. Employees who are involved in an accident while driving a vehicle or vessel owned, acquired by, or acquired with funds from the county, a personal vehicle while conducting county business, or operating heavy equipment that results in damage to the vehicle or any property shall inform their supervisor immediately, and all employees and operators of vehicles or equipment who did or could have contributed to the incident shall submit to drug and alcohol testing to refute the presumption of being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or both. Refer also to Chapter 86 of the Calvert County Code for screening and testing procedures. 2. Refusal to submit to drug and alcohol testing shall result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment, and may include restitution and reimbursement of all costs, charges, and expenses arising from the incident. Fiscal impact. An increase in the number of drug and alcohol tests will minimally impact departmental budgets. Conclusion recommendation. It is staff's recommendation that the board sign the attached resolution adopting the revisions to section 9.09 of the Risk Management and Safety Manual.
Questions, discussion, motions?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the revisions of Section 9.09 of the Risk Management and Safety Manual as presented, and signing the resolution.
Second.
A motion and a second that we approve and adopt the revisions of section 9.09 of the Risk Management and Safety Manual as presented and sign the resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
You're
one
just
more.
going to be stuck in
I
that
have
chair.
one more.
Item 4, Department of Human Resources Amendments to Work Rules of Chapter 86 Personnel Calvert County Code.
Background. On Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, a public hearing was held to amend the work rules of Chapter 86, Personnel of the Calvert County Code, pertaining to incidents arising from the driving or operation of a vehicle, vessel, or heavy equipment by employees, appointees, and persons reporting to work under the influence of alcohol, intoxicants, or illegally used drugs, or possess, sell, transfer, or purchase same on county premises or work sites while on duty as prohibited. There was no public comment. The record is closed. Discussion. The code amendments to revise the county's post-vehicle accident procedure summarized in work rule at section 86-5-102X and remove the statement except under a doctor's direction at section 86-5-102 AA are included below. The ordinance is attached for your signature. Section 86-5-102 Rules X reads as follows. Employees who are involved in an accident while driving a vehicle or vessel owned, acquired by, or acquired with funds from the county, a personal vehicle while conducting county business, or operating heavy equipment that results in personal injury, damage to a vehicle, or any other property shall inform their supervisor immediately, and all employees and operators of vehicles or equipment who did or could have contributed to the incident shall submit to drug and alcohol testing to refute the presumption of being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or both. Refusal to submit to drug and alcohol testing shall result in disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment, and may include restitution and reimbursement of all costs, charges, and expenses arising from the incident. Double A reads, employees shall not report to work under the influence of alcohol, intoxicants, or illegally used drugs, or possess, sell, transfer, or purchase same on county premises or work sites while on duty. Employees who are off duty are subject to any departmental order, oath, or code of conduct which may address or prohibit these activities. Fiscal impact. The increase in the number of drug and alcohol tests will minimally impact departmental budgets. Conclusion recommendation. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners accept the proposed code amendments and sign the attached ordinance.
Thank you. Questions? Discussion? Motions?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the amendments to Chapter 86 of the Calvert County Code as presented and signing the related ordinance.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve and adopt the amendments to Chapter 86 of the Calvert County Code as presented and sign the related ordinance. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You have
Thank you,
another one?
Commissioners. No, I am done for the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Item 5, Department of Public Works, contract extension.
Make sure you speak right into the mic. I got a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. Hi, Heather Maggard, Solid Waste Division Chief,
I'm James Ritter, the Deputy Director for Enterprise Funds.
and presenting the Waste Management Garnet Transfer Station Contract Extension Memo. Background, on February 21st, 1997, Calvert County signed a 20-year contract with Garnet of Maryland Incorporated for the hauling and disposal of municipal solid waste from a Peel transfer station. The contract was extended for 5 years, expiring on February 22nd, 2022. The contract extension in discussion, the contract extension with Garnet of Maryland includes a transportation surcharge of $3.25 per ton for waste that is processed and transferred from a Peel transfer station. In order to increase the tipping fee rate to accommodate the transportation surcharge and to account for the changes to Solid Waste Division's fiscal year 23 budget, a public hearing was held on June 14th, 2022. And after receiving public comments, the record was closed. Fiscal impact. If approved, the fiscal impacts of proceeding with this contract extension include increased revenue in the amount of $329,722 to the landfill tipping fee account, increased expenses in the amount of $100,101 to the compactor service agreement, and $436,943 to the commercial service agreement. An additional $207,322 from fund balance is required to balance the budget and expense accounts. These amendments to fiscal year 2023 budget are reflected in budget adjustment number 001. Not proceeding with the extension would result in complete loss of revenue from inbound tipping fees and the full cost burden of hauling and disposing county municipal solid waste. In conclusion, Public Works recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve Budget Adjustment 001 and sign the transfer station contract extension.
Thank you. Questions? Discussion? Motions?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve budget adjustment number 001 and sign the transfer station contract extension.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Excuse me. Adopting and approving budget adjustment BA001, signing the related resolution and authorizing the president to sign the transfer station contract extension on behalf of the board. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes new business. The next item on the agenda is a presentation by the County Administrator's Office, an update on the cable build-out.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Linda Vassallo, Deputy County Administrator. We are going to walk through a brief update on the Comcast build-out, but before we do that, I want to introduce who I have at the table with me. Kevin Broadhurst, who is the Vice President of Government Affairs for Comcast. And
Hi, everyone.
Morning.
Ashley Staples-Reed, who's our Project Manager in the County Administrator's Office, and she's doing the lion's share of the intake workforce right now. Good morning.
Morning.
All right, is Chris on the line? Did he come in? I'm not sure if Chris Comer, he was going to join us by Teams, but I'm not sure if he's
I don't
here
see
yet.
him.
Okay. Next slide, please, Darryl.
I've not seen Chris Comer.
Okay, thank you. Gotta love that guy.
Says the man behind
I
the
think I
curtain.
saw on
Yeah, that's the
Facebook
man
he
behind
was
the
on vacation.
He's in Utah, actually,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but
he's
he-
been pinging me here and there, but I
Yeah,
know the
yeah.
cell service is not great.
All right, so we're gonna provide a brief update on the status of the cable build-out in Calvert County. Next slide, Darryl, please. Just a reminder, we're under a franchise agreement with Comcast. I always like to remind folks, even though we're kind of operating outside of the norm here, cable franchises agreements provide the provision for cable television in the public right-of-way. They don't address broadband, internet service. They don't provide exclusive rights to provide cable television, meaning other cable companies can come in and do the same work that Comcast is doing. We have attempted to recruit those companies in the past. They have not joined the table, and allows the county to, or allow the county to regulate cable rates. Next slide, please, Darryl. Just a quick recap of the board actions for this project. In April of '21, the commissioners approved full build-out up to the 300-foot right-of-way, which is what the cable agreement says, franchise agreement says. In August of '21, the commissioners amended that and applied ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funds, to extend service and remove the 300-foot limitation, thereby allowing cable access to every residence in the county. There was no charge to the constituent in the middle of this build and until we finish this build, but we do need to talk about a cutoff date if those individuals that have that line coming through their yard or coming in front of their house decide not to take the service there will be a cost associated with that once this project is complete. In November of '21, the Commissioners approved to reimburse constituents between January 1st and December 31st of 2021 who invested in their own construction. We did a big poll with the public on that, and we did reimburse several people, and those expenditures were just shy of $30,000. And I'm going to ask, next slide, Ashley's going to walk you through where we are with the build-out.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So for our phases 1 and 2, this chart was presented to you guys back in November when we did our first update. We have done a lot of completed projects since then. We do have weekly calls with Comcast construction team to get these updates. So this was as of Thursday of last week. We have the majority of our phases 1 and 2 projects completed. As you see, the ones in red are still in development. Majority of these were slated for completion in Q2. So these last handful of projects are going to be a little bit behind on completion. A lot of that is due to materials, redesign that needed to go back. So Comcast is very transparent with any delays, and we do try to keep our map update, which I'll explain in the next slides. But I do just want to note that Barstow is halfway completed, which I'll go over in the next slide. So Daryl, next slide. So the Barstow update, it's the largest build out of our phases 1 and 2. We have a total of 165 homes. About last week, maybe about a week and a half ago, the northern half of Barstow was completed. And that's majority underground work, so that was a little bit easier to build. So 97 homes were released. So those homes can start to call Comcast and just schedule a regular technician appointment. The south end is a little bit more difficult because there is a lot more aerial construction involved, which delays construction because there's more permitting involved, make-readies, drive-throughs that Comcast has to do with the utility companies. That is slated for completion mid-July, however, so they are avidly still working. And we did receive notice that the underground in that area was complete, so they are predominantly working on that aerial. So the map that you can see online is available. It's live. It is updated as we receive updates. So if you look at the map and you see that yellow concentration in the Barstow area, that's the south end of the Barstow. So it is still yellow pending. We do have various phases in construction, so a project can either be identified in its survey/design phase, in its permitting phase, and its construction phase, and then complete. So once a project has been identified, it is going to be marked as red. And then once it goes into construction phases 2, 3, and 4, whether it be surveying, permitting, or construction, it is going to turn to a yellow dot in order to be able to visually inform our constituents that their project, meaning their residence, business, what have you, is in production. And then once it is complete, that dot that indicates their residence or business is going to turn green. And that means they can receive service at that point. So Daryl, next slide. So funding for phases 1 and 2, as Linda Vassallo did touch base, we were originally going to use franchise fees, but then we were awarded ARPA funding. So we switched our funding source to ARPA. The ARPA funds did essentially replace that. However, we still have access to that. And then also during that time frame, we also did receive a grant that matched some of the county contributions. So we were able to save $1.4 million. And the breakdown is right there. So for combined phases 1 and 2, the total construction was $3.766158. The state actually contributed $2.259. So the county contribution was only 1.4, apologies. And then Comcast did contribute the 406,161. With those last few projects in phase 2 not being completely done, we could have just a slight bit more cost savings, but we do anticipate having a little bit of cost savings. Okay, and I'll take it back to Linda.
All right. I'm going to pick up the build-out for Phase 3. So this is really the meat of the discussion today. We wanted to give you an update on where we were with the build-out. I did want to thank Comcast for their assistance with that state grant because they provided staff to write that grant. It's a heavy lift, and they did the hard work for us. So Phase 3, as I mentioned earlier, was added in November of '21. Again, it's making sure that everyone in the county has access to cable/broadband service at their home. We added the beyond 300-foot requirement. We spent a lot of time doing survey, construction estimate. We finished that up very late yesterday. So you're going to see a little bit of discrepancy in the numbers, but it's not bad. This includes a lot of the long drops and really, really difficult builds. We have driveways that are almost a mile back in some cases. So this Phase 3, they're going to be covered there if they're not already covered in Phase 1 and 2. Estimate for construction is mostly underground. We're going to walk through options 1 and 2 here in a minute for an aerial versus underground scenario. And this will be the last of the homes identified. There's 350, give or take. Again, when we added this back in November, commissioners were very clear about doing public outreach and making sure that we got to everybody. And we spent a lot of time doing a considerable amount of outreach, and that's how we got these additional homes, that and a little bit of GIS work from Comcast. So I think we've canvassed really well, but I do think when we come back for public hearing, which we're also going to talk about in a minute, we need to set a deadline where we're going to take in new applications.
My question is, at the end of Phase 3, how many do you think could be left out there?
Well, I think we're going to be pretty solid on the passings of all the residences, but if they don't take the service, I mean, it's their prerogative to take the service, then they will have to run that line from wherever that service line is to their home. So I would strongly suggest, if you're even remotely interested, now is the time.
Or even the future of selling your home.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Internet's like electricity. Probably, gazillion years ago, people were like, what would I really need it for? And you just can't operate without it. I mean, it's that essential. I mean, so many people working from home. We already seen with COVID, with schools and schooling from there. So I'm with you. Even if somebody doesn't think it's essential today,
Costs you nothing today.
Yeah.
It'll cost you something
it's
in a
very
couple of
important
months.
for the future
And
to have
just-
that connection.
If they don't want to actually order service today, just want to clarify, if they don't want to order service today, they may not want to in the next year. You're saying they can get the drop installed now
Correct,
for future possible use at no cost.
correct.
Thank you.
All right, so after we finished up the GIS survey and the walking surveys and all kinds of different surveys, we came up with 2 options with Comcast's assistance. So option 1 for Phase 3 is 100% underground. It's a 12 to 18-month build. This is the last 350 we just talked about. Total construction is $6,050,000. The county's portion would be 5.57, and Comcast would contribute $478,800. On option 2, it's a combination of aerial and underground, which is a much longer build because of permitting for poles. Total construction on that would be 6.7. County's contribution is 6.2, and Comcast's contribution is $478,800,000. If you go with that, it's going to be a savings of $665,000, but I do recommend that we go underground if we can. We are looking at some state funding to try and cover the extra funds for this, and some additional funding in-house. So let me stop there and make sure there's no questions about option 1 and option 2. Okay. Daryl, can you move on to the next slide, please? Ashley, you want to just give a quick update here?
So just to reiterate, what we have available on our county website for our citizens is access to kind of a landing platform where people can ask questions, add their name and their information and their address if they want to be added onto this build-out list, as well as seeing the interactive map. So if you go to calvertcountymd.gov, you're going to see towards the right-hand side Comcast build-out, and that's going to take you to the landing page. That's going to give you options for those sub-forms, either to inquire with questions specific to your address, view the interactive map, which is Daryl has brought up on the screen, as well as adding your name to the build-out. So really what we're really encouraging citizens right now is to look at this map, see if their address is on it. If it's not for any reason and they want to be on it, they need to reach out to us. So, like I said, this is updated in real time as far as when we receive updates. So if there is not a corresponding dot to a person's residence, it is not listed. So we just want to reiterate that. So we highly encourage citizens to view this map, see where their residence or their business is as far as what phase and things like that. So if you were to click on any of these dots, you could see that, as Daryl did right on the screen right there. So he just clicked a spot in our Barstow area, and it shows projected completion as well as construction status. So again, live updates as far as we receive them. Once we receive updates in regards to projection completion date, as far as where they're at in the construction phase, again, whether it's surveying, permitting, construction, we'll be able to update that, and then our citizens will be able to go onto that interactive map and see exactly where they are as far as start to finish.
Okay, all right. Last slide, Daryl, please. So that completes the recap of the status of the build-out. And what we're asking the commissioners to consider today is to allow staff to come back to conduct a public hearing to allocate funds. I would like to determine the approach you would like to take today so that we can really finalize those numbers when we come back. And then we will have to update our memorandum of understanding with Comcast, which we're already working on, to finish it out. And then with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
So 665,000, get it done
Yes, sir.
in a third of the time.
Yes.
And it's done the right way, so
Discussion?
Yeah.
I would think. We wish you could go back in time and put so many power lines underground and things of that nature. We see it every time there's a storm, the trees and everything, and I know it's everything, there's an old expression, right? Every bridge built was done by the lowest bidder. I'm the same concern. I hate spending the extra money, but I just think in the long term, we get it back. I think that's the right way to do it, to be quite honest. As far as service calls, interruptions, there's money spent that way too, unforeseen dollars. I mean, I don't know if underground makes it 100%, but
You're right, underground would not be 100% because there are aspects of the network that will be feeding that underground portion from aerial. One other scenario that you could kind of contemplate is that if we move forward with 100% underground, we could also scope out the make-ready work for that 12 miles of aerial. And if we determine that this is not going to be much of a delay, the poles are solid, we can have access to them rather quickly, we can actually go down that path. So we can move forward with an underground 100% package here. And then in the meantime, look at maybe using the 12 miles of aerial to see how bad the make-ready will be. Because right now, we don't know what we don't know. And there could be significant delays, there could be poles that need to be replaced. We just don't know that until we get down the path. We could start exploring that and then come back to the county and say, we can still do those 12 miles of aerial. That's going to save you money. You can look at that option as well.
And we still are actively seeking other sources of funding.
Yes,
So-
sir.
And we still have some ARP funding and things we could do. So even if we schedule the budget hearing and make a budget adjustment, at the end of the day, doesn't mean that's all gonna come out of county funds. There's other opportunities out there. But we need to start the process so that we can initiate the plan.
Yes, sir.
That's where we are today.
I think the
So
good thing
the
is we
first
started
decision
so
is
early.
which option? Option one or option two?
I would like to clarify something that you said early on, and that was that with this agreement and with the franchise, this is not an exclusive agreement between Calvert and Comcast. Any provider can come in and negotiate with us. If any other company wanted to come in and be a competitor to Comcast, we would gladly have a conversation with them.
Absolutely. I've been doing this for a very long time, and we've been trying to recruit for a very long
Right,
time.
I
Would
just-
be
I-
happy to work with them.
I wanted to go
Absolutely.
out there because there are some complaints out there, and we just want to make sure that Comcast is aware of those and that they're aware that if somebody comes up to us, we'll be happy
Absolutely.
to talk to
They're
them
aware.
about competition.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
and we're seeing more and more competitors come online every few months, it seems like. So we're very well aware of the competitive situation.
Option one or option two?
I'm all for all buried.
You're for which one?
And your motion is? feel like a dentist sometimes.
I know, I'm working on it.
It's pretty easy.
How deep do they go with the cable? In my experience, it's very shallow.
You know, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look and ask our engineers that. There are, federal requirements that make us or have us go a certain depth underground, so I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, it's not deep.
Your drops typically get buried by your contractors about an inch.
About an inch.
Okay, that's not code, by the way.
Okay.
I'm
I'll
just
take
saying,
that back to our
from previous
engineers.
experience,
Yeah.
working in
I'll get it.
utilities for a decade plus.
Is it gonna be laid in pipe or just the line?
It's in a conduit.
In conduit now?
I would just add too, first I'd like to thank Linda and her staff and the Board of Commissioners for all the work that you've done, the partnership that we've built over many years with Chris Comer's help and with you, with Linda and her staff, because right now the county is really at the 3-yard line. You've done so much to close this rural digital divide, and that's because of the work that you all have done. So I would like to congratulate you all on that, because there are so few counties really in the United States that can say that. Because of the narrow nature of the county, the fiber that runs through it, the cable franchise density requirement being what it is, and also the partnership that you all have established has really gotten the county to the 3-yard line. And I would think you're probably going to be the first county in the state to be able to kind of close out that rural digital divide.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Mr. President,
Yes, Commissioner Gadway?
I have a motion now.
That's good.
I hope it's the right one.
We'll see.
I move that we direct staff to schedule a public hearing to approve and adopt funding Phase 3, as well as a memorandum of understanding with Comcast to finalize the project, primarily based on a buried plant.
Option 2. Right?
Yes.
Option 1. Option
Option 1, I'm sorry.
Option 1, I'm
No.
sorry. Option 2 is the
Option-
aerial
they're flipped.
aerial underground mix.
Yeah.
So it
I'm
would
sorry.
be option 1,
I'm sorry.
the cheaper of the two.
It's the more
No,
expensive
that's
of the
all.
two.
No,
These
it's
are
more
labeled
expensive.
wrong.
It's-
Apologize, they're labeled wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
they're backwards.
6.7 is the build
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
So it's,
But that would be slated for
Underground.
completion within
Yeah.
12 to 18 months.
Right, that part's correct.
Yes.
Second.
I can't repeat his motion. I have a motion and a second on the floor that we move forward with a public hearing for budget adjustment operating under option 1 to finish the build-out of the Comcast cable installation. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We look forward to being first.
You will be.
Okay. We look forward to being done.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is our work session, item number 1, Department of Planning Zoning, proposed adequate public facilities ordinance. Director Cook,
Good morning, Commissioners.
morning.
We're here today to start the discussion about expanding our adequate public facilities ordinance. So what are adequate public facilities? When we are reviewing a proposed residential development in the county, we look to make sure that schools and roads are adequate. If they're not, then there's consequences for that development and a time frame under which it can or cannot be approved. Next slide, please. So the adequate public facilities currently contained in the Calvert County zoning ordinance in Article 7. And basically, the regulation is before the Planning Commission can grant final approval of a residential subdivision or some type of residential development. Subject to these regulations, either in its entirety or by section, it must find that all identified roads and schools are adequate, or that the roads are programmed to be adequate within 1 year. Otherwise, approval shall be denied. In cases where facilities are not adequate, that residential subdivision or development shall receive final approval if the applicant provides improvements to render those roads or schools adequate. Next slide, please. So the adequate public facilities ordinance came into effect in 1988 when the county adopted APF regulations. And as I said before, currently it's only for schools and roads. Amendments to those adequate public facilities were done for schools in 2003, 2008, and 2018, but only minor edits have been made to the adequate public facilities for roads. So originally, these regulations were in the subdivision regulations, then went to the zoning ordinance, then amendments have been made. And so now we're looking to expand it because in 2019, with the adoption of the comprehensive plan, there was an action to expand the regulations to include a lot of additional types of facilities to make sure that they're adequate, such as water and sewer, stormwater management, solid waste and recycling, fire rescue and EMS services, law enforcement services. So that's what we're here to discuss today. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that planning and zoning is only one of the departments that has been involved in the discussion coming forward to you with these proposals today. So I'm going to kick it off with talking about the adequate public facilities for schools. Next slide, please. So the current regulations specify that schools are adequate when all public elementary and secondary schools, which will serve a proposed residential subdivision or development, can accommodate the pupil yield from that residential subdivision without exceeding 100% of the rated capacity. So this is a calculation that we do internally in the department, and twice a year we work with the Board of Ed to come up with an adequate public facilities report for schools so that we know what schools are, what rated capacity they are at that time. So if they are exceeding 100%, then a major subdivision, which is a subdivision of more than 7 lots, cannot be recorded in that school's district for 6 years unless the capacity becomes adequate in one of those intervening years. So since we do the analysis twice a year, if schools become adequate, then we say that school district is open and you can record your subdivision then. Next slide. So currently we have adequate public facilities for roads where county intersections must maintain a level of service C. For town centers, it's a level of service D. And there are proposals from the Department of Public Works that the county roads must maintain a level of service C, and in town centers a D is acceptable as being proposed adequate. So that once you start approaching inadequacy, I'd like to have Carrie Dahl step forward and talk about their proposal.
Good morning again, gentlemen. Kerry Dahl, Director of Public Works. Okay, so let's quantify this. Level C. If you want to it's basically distance and time is what I'm going to try to simplify it. So level C is essentially 220 feet or roughly about 11 car lengths if you're talking about the actual maneuverability on the length of the car, or actually on the length of road. If I looked at the signal or signalized intersections, if I'm going to be at level C, I'm going to be waiting about 20 to 35 seconds at that signalized intersection before I go, okay? And then if I look at the unsignalized intersection, I'm going to be waiting roughly 15 to 25 seconds before I would proceed, okay? Level D is about 160 feet in between cars, or roughly about 8 car lengths. And then when you talk about the signalized intersection, it's a 35 to 55 second wait, okay? And then for an unsignalized intersection, it would be about 25 to 35 seconds, just to quantify this for you. And then when we start getting into the inadequate piece of this, we start talking about E or F. We're talking about where traffic, they call it unstable in the definition, but essentially your gaps that you have in between cars gets to the point where you can't maneuver in and out of traffic like you would. It does not specify a car length, but it does give you a, it does say that speeds can be obtained up to about 50 miles an hour in in that level of service E or F. But we start looking at signalized intersections being anywhere from 55 to 80 seconds at an intersection that is signalized, and about 35 to 50 seconds at an unsignalized intersection.
See, here, that's where I get confused, because every night coming home on Route 4, it's bumper to bumper in that section right there. I mean, so that's why, with these studies, you've heard us say it before, that it's a selective time period instead of a full 24 hours.
I will tell you, based on the conversation, sir, that I had with the guys that actually do this and look at it on my staff, I believe if you look at the Dares Beach Route 4 intersection, that one is between a D and an E. Okay, when it starts bumping up to that, where you start getting a little bit tight, and you know that it basically starts there and then rolls its way back, especially during rush hour.
Sure, I mean, you see it like, you come through Dunkirk on, I mean, there was little relief years ago when they changed the traffic light there by the bowling alley, but, we've seen it catch right up, so that's where I think a lot of us, I know myself, have heartburn with, to me, none of them are even a C, it's because when when you look at it, any given time, I mean, you don't want to get to a point where you say, well, I don't leave the house between certain times. But I mean, if I'm making that drive every day, it's miserable.
Understood, sir. So, I mean, that's essentially what we're proposing there.
And will these grades be utilized on the, as Commissioner Hart was talking, the rush periods or the rush averaged over the 24-hour period?
I think it impacts, the traffic study looks at everything, sir. So it's going to be throughout. It's an average time believed throughout. I'd have to double check on that for
Right.
you.
And I appreciate the definitions. It's just when we sit there and look at certain key intersections throughout the county, and there are times when, with no accidents or anything else, it's 20 to 30 minutes to get through an intersection from, say, Huntingtown to the hospital, just simply due to traffic. That I can't imagine 20 or 30 minutes. You were talking 20 or 30 seconds earlier.
Yeah, that's the wait time at the light. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So.
And now you're impacting quality of life, with that. So that's where, I'm going to be pretty picky, I think, on, to me, we're behind. But, I don't even think we're even close to even. So, I just, I get it in a perfect world if you didn't have rush hour and stuff like that and you're able to analyze a spot, but, in the morning, we all see it. It doesn't pass the eye test. Even no matter what, so.
Yeah, I'm just surprised we're going to use D as passing.
Yeah.
Well,
it
is 2022.
Well,
sorry, bad joke.
Bad
Still get a
joke.
trophy.
Well, and if I may inject, as someone who is not returning, I think it's imperative that the current board and future boards work with the delegation on the matter of numbered roads specific to 2 and 4, because at the end of the day, we need assistance, the county, the citizens, with this matter.
And the problem is that the projects, a lot of times, are off of Route 4 or far enough that it's not even considered in the study. In my 4 years, I don't think I've seen a traffic study yet that said a subdivision contributed any impact, which always shocks the heck out of me.
Yeah,
but,
yes, sir, we have the same concerns from our staff.
You build an apartment complex on a 2-lane road with 250 units, and the traffic study comes back and says there's no impact. Who can sign their name to that and say, oh yeah, there's no impact on this little 2-lane road? And so then all that traffic gets dumped on Route 4, and nobody's accounting for that.
Sir, I would offer that maybe we could drill down on this one a little bit more. Maybe we get one of the engineers come in and give you an overview of traffic studies and how they're done, and then essentially enumerate how they get to where the impacts are measured for something that's being developed.
Somewhere along the line, we've got to take into account the impact on the major thoroughfare for a project, even if it's a mile down Dares Beach Road. Because at the end of the day, they're all going to 2 and 4. So you can't have a project on a back road that puts 400 houses, which is, according to Calvert County stats, 1,000 cars, and say there's no impact. And every study comes back and says no impact. And we see 3 Saturdays ago, the traffic light Stokely Road was backed up beyond the Toyota dealer on a Saturday, middle of the day, and there was no accident.
And Commissioner
So
Haynes,
it's not just, we all talk about rush hour Monday through Friday. It ain't that anymore. Saturday, Route 4 Saturday in Prince Frederick is worse than rush hour during most weekdays now.
Correct.
I mean, and everybody talks about the high price of gas and people aren't going to, they ain't stop nobody. You just look at Prince Frederick on a Saturday morning and we continually do not account for the traffic on Route 4 when we approve all these projects.
and Commissioner
And
Haynes.
somewhere along the line, we've got to do that.
And ditto that on 231. There's
Oh.
times where people will wait 5 to 10 minutes to try and make a safe left-hand turn onto 231.
Correct.
And that's not been the case 10 years ago. And so I don't know if that was looked at, like you're saying. That traffic didn't just come from nowhere.
Right.
Well, and Commissioner Hans is spot on, and I had a conversation with someone who was proposing a development, and I said, my question is, how do you get those cars out of there? Point blank in my face, not my problem. So I said, but it is mine. So that's really where I'm at on that, because I get it. Well, I'm following the rules, but those rules are from '88. Who lived here in '88? I graduated in '86, right? Well, I mean, how many people, you know what I mean? So I graduated in '86 when one bus picked up Drum Point, Ranch Club, and Cove Point. Think about that, one high school bus. So I get it, in 1988, probably some of this stuff was never even thought of. But the person was completely honest to look me in my face and say, not my problem. Well, you're not working with the county. Your intent is not benefiting the county. It's strictly yourself business-wise. And I get that. I understand businesses. But it is our problem. So that's why you've heard me scream before, moratoriums and things of that nature. To me, this APF needs teeth. It needs to really work. And Commissioner Hans is spot on. There's only one way out of this town. It's called Route 4. So, or 231 or Route 2, and they're all already packed.
So for me, moving forward, it's not just about rating of road capacity. It's that we include those thoroughfares in our studies for those projects that may not be on the main road but are going to impact that main road.
Would you commissioners desire a follow-up on this with the
I think we
traffic
should.
engineer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. To
And
get
not that
to
same
get a real-
engineer that came in and told us we don't have any traffic problems.
Correct.
Don't bring that guy in here anymore.
Because I don't think we're at a C.
All right, sir, I'll go look for another one then.
Oh, absolutely. But and what they have to understand too, so when these consultants, not every size fits all. It's what is the will of the town. So if I'm a consultant, I say, well, talk to me your philosophy. What do you want? Well, I want my quality of life. Okay, well, based on these parameters you're giving me, and my quality of life is, I don't want all this congestion. What a C is failing, if going by those parameters, I want to be able to freely move down the road, for within reason. I'm not saying back to when I was a kid, but relatively without the congestion. If that's where you're going, then as a consultant, this is how I should set that up. Not just, well, to Fairfax, this is great. Or to Annapolis, this is great.
And that's what the consultant said.
Exactly right.
The consultant said publicly 3 times, you don't have traffic problems because it's not as bad as Northern Virginia and
Correct.
DC.
But for Calvert County, it's
But for
unacceptable.
Calvert County, yes.
That's right.
That's the difference.
I've heard over the last year, I've heard many different people at different functions say that the last traffic study was either inadequate or outdated. How long ago was that last traffic study?
I would have to look, sir.
2016 was the last one I saw from State Highway.
And that was just what? That was just like a, what's the word? They didn't redo it. It was just,
Commissioners, Mark Willis, County Administrator.
Mark.
That was not a traffic study, it was a traffic plan.
right.
It's a transportation
It was
plan.
the
That's it,
transportation plan that's required, and we updated that because of the updating of the comprehensive plan in 2019. The transportation plan had not been updated with the previous comprehensive plan update. It was merely the title page of that transportation plan was updated, but it itself was not updated. It just got a new date. So this was a overall plan, not a traffic study.
Any idea when the last traffic study was?
I do believe it was in
88,
2000.
right? Oh, whoa.
Prior to 2015, prior to all of the upgrades that have been done recently to Route 24. And we have been working with State Highway and regularly requesting that they do an updated traffic study, not a transportation plan, but a
that
traffic
would've
study
also-
based on those improvements.
Right.
So
Well, there's been the improvements to the
Right.
intersections and stuff like that, but there's also been additional construction of residential build-out and people moving into the county and more densely populated areas at the same time.
So,
The
Commissioners, one,
2016 plan called for 2 overpasses and east and
Right.
west loop,
Right. I
complete
remember
loop
that.
road. And those loop roads, at least one of them's gonna be impossible
Right.
based on topography.
in
But that's what
fact,
that plan says.
well, and I believe that State Highways already removed that as an option anyway, and that was before the 2019 comprehensive plan. The commissioners, you have already updated your transportation letter to the secretary, and that was to take the priorities are the Thomas Johnson Bridge, and it used to be the economic corridor that really connected 231 with our sister Southern Maryland counties, which was an initiative of a previous commissioner. However, the third priority was to finish the upgrade to Prince Frederick 2 and 4 all the way through, heading north through Stokely Road. That is desperately needed because you just have a choke point earlier. That's been brought to their attention. You actually moved that priority up as the number 2 priority. The reason that's important is, the chances that we're going to get our number 1 priority, which is a Southern Maryland priority, to fix the troubles with the Thomas Johnson Bridge, that's out there so far. I think our number 2 priority is most important to us today. And regardless of what we do here over the next couple of years trying to fix this problem for us, it's almost like we need to fix the problem in St. Mary's County. Now, they might not like hearing me say that, but their growth is not slowing down. It's growing exponentially, and a large percentage of that, or at least an increased percentage of that, is passing through Calvert County twice a day. So,
So you're gonna come back,
Yes, sir. On this one, I will, yes, sir.
not that consultant, but another.
I will find a consultant to,
But Carrie, it's important that the consultant understands, what we're looking for. And because their job is to help us get there. So when we're looking to ease this traffic, help us get there, not just go, like we've heard in the past, well, you could be in Northern Virginia. I mean, because that's not what we aspire to be. So that's the important thing with the consultant. You can get them all day long, but they're working for us. So it's what the will of the folks want.
So these were the 2 that currently exist in our adequate public facilities. Schools, we're proposing no changes. Roads, will be back with a consultant. And then everything moving forward, next slide please, is brand new. So these will be proposed to be analyzed for new developments, both residentially and commercial development.
so, public sewer. I've been in front of you several times already talking about this. I will tell you that, just like the previous one that I did, as well as everything else that I'm adding, I looked at other neighboring counties as well as counties that are, we'll say, I've actually looked at to the north. There's a couple of northern counties bordering Pennsylvania that probably match up well with us as far as, a rural county. And what I tried to do on these is provide you numbers, just like I did with when I gave you what it was for a level of service C, D. Same thing here. I'm trying to give you actually a hard metric, so I'm not like hiding the numbers is what I'm getting at. So I've been in front of you several times. We talked about sewer capacity in Prince Frederick being at 68.1%, okay? And right now, adequate is essentially below 80%. Now, I've seen counties go as high as 85 and 90, okay, on some of their APFs, okay? I thought that was untenable, along with consultation with James Ritter, our enterprise funds. We felt 80 was the best number to go with there because that is the first threshold that you are required to do anything with MDE, okay? Because you have to get something after you average a flow of 80% or more, okay, for 3 years. So that's basically the push-off point when you have to modify your systems and make them better. The approaching inadequacy, I saw them go as high as 95%, believe it or not, when they started bumping into those. So we kept that between the 80 and 90% level because that gives you the opportunity to actually come up with a plan and put something in place to improve the capacity of the sewer treatment plants.
So is that, your percentages, is that based, does that include their flow? Or that's just where we are today?
That's the flow, sir. That's the flow.
Pro-
Measured
including
flows
their
from any
projected
plant that
flow.
we have operating in Calvert County.
So if we've got 5 projects approved and they're in some form, you're accounting for all those when you say it's at 80%?
When they cut a
today?
public works agreement, that's when they get accounted for the flow,
Okay.
their projected flows.
I just want to make sure that we're clear that
Yes, sir.
it's
And that
based
is-
on,
That's during design.
Say again?
That's during
It gets
design.
designed, and after it gets through its design process, then they'll go and generate a public works agreement with us, and then that's when we count them towards the flow. And if we come up and we find out that they're adding it to it is gonna put us over, let's just say, the 90 percentile, if we go down to inadequate, then we're essentially gonna be in an inadequate phase for that, but they should probably know that in advance. Because we are planning some of those numbers. We went through and did all that when we looked at the flows. We went through what was in process and how that was gonna bump us up.
And then whose responsibility is that to get it back to adequate?
Sir, we, right now, if we just use the Prince Frederick area, we have a lagoon system, and we'll say mid-grade, we'll say wastewater treatment plants. We can upgrade those and actually get to a higher level. I'm just gonna say that, and throw that out there. And I'm
Right,
not trying to
but-
get into all that
Oh, I
right
know,
now,
but you
sir.
know where I'm going with that. I mean, so if somebody's project pushes us over that threshold, then it makes it the taxpayer's problem.
My staff will try to identify those disqualifiers early and often as we can. without
Because, you
moving
know, trying
forward.
to do the right thing to help someone, say, with a problem. And I hate being so pessimistic, but I'll tell you, you just watch it over and over and over. Once you alleviate that problem, say you were to take Section A and you are able to hook them up to sewer. Now all of a sudden there's all these other lots now that qualify. And now all of a sudden they want to build that and add to that. And so, you know, if we don't have something going into that, you know, we're all about preserving property and preserving space. They'll just exploit us on that side. So we want to be very careful. And it's all for what? What's the reason to put another apartment complex or
Sure,
to
I
put
totally
another?
understand where you're coming from, but I will also say that I'm also looking at what the standards that MDE may go to in the coming years, and how some of their standards that are adequate 10 or 15 years ago
Sure.
are inadequate today, and that's still going to be the same thing 10 or 15 years down the road from today.
Which is-
where what is good now is not going to be good then, and that's why we're looking at the upgrades to facilities that we have.
Which is a great reason that we should be overly cautious on it. When, in a couple of slides, we're going to be talking about solid waste, which you're putting at a 70 and 80%, where here you have 80 and 90%. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to transport solid waste out in trucks than it is to transport public sewer through pipes and/or other things. I'm excited to hear that there's other opportunities in Prince Frederick to expand, or I'm sorry, modernize and/or get better usage out of the plant. I would be very comfortable with especially all the conversations we've had over the last month and a half to 2 months of these numbers on the public sewer and public water being at 70 and 80%, not 80 and 90%. That would ensure that we have enough of a timeline and a buffer and conversation time in order to be able to address those concerns and not have to worry about it when we hit 90%.
Understood, sir.
Commissioners, if I may, I think Commissioner Hart, you were talking about the potential for the citizens to have to pay for an increase in capacity or a rebuild of a system. So it's actually paid forward. So when a developer comes in and needs 100, 200, 300 EDUs, we call them taps, but equivalent dwelling unit is equivalent to 200 gallons per tap. A house, an apartment requires one of those. A commercial business could require 50 of those. They pay those, that fee up front. So for water, it's $3,000. For sewer, it's $5,400. For every single one of those taps, they pay for that as they come in, and it goes into a kitty. And I say a kitty, but it goes into an account that is available for water and sewer. That's the funding that they actually use if they have to upgrade a system in the future. So that's in his account.
Sure.
They
And-
use that going forward.
And I pay 2 EDUs at my business, but I don't pay enough for us to have to build a new facility to handle it. I mean, it's, because that funding also is, now if there's a problem, county comes fixes it. Those are county pipes and all running down there, and I appreciate that piece, but it's still not enough to incur that cost if you have to. I mean, right now, if we don't infuse the town with a ton of building, we probably don't have to upgrade that, so they're at least not expand it for more use.
Sir, you do pay for it up front, okay,
Mhm.
but there is an O&M cost that comes with your bills that comes every quarter.
Is it enough to handle a brand new
Yes, sir,
facility?
because you do pay a fixed rate that is tied to the number of EDUs that you have, and it's also a variable rate that's tied to how much you actually use. So there is a way that's factored in to where the people who are on the system are paying for the system. So when they're brought onto the system, they pay in, and then they have an O&M, operations and maintenance, that actually sustain the facilities that they currently have.
Okay, right. So what would what would a new facility cost ballpark?
I'd be.
Could you say 20 million?
Well, Mike, they would bond that.
Well, that's where I'm going, right. So then we would have to go out and bond it, and exactly, that's where I'm going. So it's not like, and even if we could draw enough to make that bond payment, that still goes against our AAA bond rating because we're still putting more on our credit. I just don't see, personally, the plus side of expanding water, sewer, all this stuff, just for growth. I mean, what do the citizens get out of it besides more traffic, need more officers, need more paid EMTs? What is the gain?
I understand what you're saying, sir, and I agree with you, okay? But like I said previously, I'm also planning for an upgrade in standards that MDE may be giving
And I
us as
appreciate
well.
that, I do, because their standards do get stricter and stricter, but I'm not looking to do that just so I can add more growth and expand centers and that, so that's where I'm coming from.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
I guess, are we going to ask for another one on this one too?
Well, you can make a suggestion if you want to see the numbers change.
I would like to see the numbers change to the 70 and 80 for this and for the water. That would also fall in line with the solid waste as well. That way we have an equal number across the board, that we know what's good, we know what we need to work on. And if we're at 68% now on public sewer, then we need to start looking at what we need to do in order to take care of that, which is what you're already doing.
And we are. Yes,
So
sir.
I would like to see it at 70 and 80% instead of the 80 and 90s.
So you want to
Anytime.
change adequate to 70 and change approaching inadequacy to 70, 80?
Correct. Where 80 is on the board up there now,
Where did these numbers come from originally? The 70?
These numbers here, they're
MDE,
tied to
right?
MDE's numbers when you actually are required to design something that's currently, we'll say, the 80%. If you sustain a flow that's 8% of your, we'll say, permitted capacity for 3 years in a row, you're required to then go into a design phase to then bring that up to standard to increase the capacity.
over the course of the last couple months, we've had multiple different discussions on this. And the benchmark we were always told in the past was 80%, or I shouldn't say told. The benchmark I understood was 80%. Depending on how it was explained or which way the numbers went or this or that, that 80% could have been attained anywhere within 3 years out to 25 years. So, I mean, that 80% depending on how the construction was, depending on this, depending on that, depending on the amount of usage per each. I remember the numbers literally changing from one week to the next to the next. I'd like to have a very good buffer and safety. I'd personally like to see the 70 and 80 and eliminate the 90 off of both of these. Because when we get to 90, that's too close to 100.
You base these numbers on MDE for the most part, right?
Correct, sir. I did.
Because they consider you adequate if you're less than 80, and you start to get concerned when you're trigger over 80. And
Yes,
it's a
sir.
3-year average, yep.
I'd just like to be, we can always be more cautious in MD.
Understood.
What's funny, the state always says you could be more restrictive, you could be more protective, right? But then when it comes to this, we don't have to get concerned until you get to 90. And then how long does it take to get it back down? And when we've had that discussion before too.
Yes, sir.
So I don't have a problem with what Commissioner Gadway's saying with making it more restrictive.
Motion.
So, just for protocol's sake, this is a work session?
Oh, yeah,
Where is this
We're just
going?
giving direction.
Yeah.
You're giving us
I'm
direction
sorry.
to
Thank you.
draft
Yeah.
the ordinance.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just want,
Commissioners, what can certainly happen, staff they're listening to you, they're taking those notes. We could bring pretty much the same presentation back in with options under each one of those that you've discussed. It'd make it much easier for you to just select one of them, make a motion on that at a near-term future session.
So you've heard the discussion, so.
Yes, sir.
You can take that and
We'll take the guidance and
Consider
come
your
back with a
options.
different plan next time. Yes, sir. Understood.
I'm sorry, that was my.
oh, no, I'm just
I'm used to
clarifying.
motions concluding things, so,
I understand, sir.
yeah,
We used an idea this time.
we did. All right, what's next?
So the next slide is public water.
In Calvert County,
Ditto.
Director, Public Works, Kerry Dahl, one more time. Got 2 more after this one. Okay.
Ditto.
Yeah, I think you could take the same
That-
approach.
I just say, the reason why I say ditto is to try and save some time that we
Agreed.
lost on the last one.
You could take
Okay, so
the same approach.
there are 19 water systems in the county. Each one is permitted with MDE for its own capacity. Okay, so it's drawn for each one of those permits for each one of those 19 systems. So, again, comparing and contrasting numbers from neighboring counties and counties like ours, I've come up with these numbers as a suggestion.
So of those 18?
19.
19? How many of them are approaching 80% capacity?
I would have to get that, okay? But I know that there is probably 1 or 2 that are not allowed to proceed with any more added requirements.
So when you come back, could you bring those, please?
Yes, sir, I could.
And
But,
direct,
but I will say there is, pardon me, sir.
No,
There is
sir.
a threshold that you can cross and actually go to MDE and get that number increased. You can ask them and they will increase it based on a case-by-case basis.
And that's based on your withdrawal.
Pardon me, sir?
With the withdrawal from groundwater, what do they base that increase on?
Based on the numbers that we report to them, that we're required to report to them, we self-report and we give them the percentage that we're actually using.
And in that process, do they consider the aquifer levels?
I believe those are taken into account. If you recall, we also have the U.S. Geological Survey that we're partnered with as well. That's basically gives us the health of the aquifer that we are actually drawing from. So it's essentially, it's a comprehensive look at everything. I'm not saying that it's not taken into account, but I'm sure that factors into it. I would have to get more details on that to actually adequately answer that. But understand what you're saying. Yes, sir, I'm ready.
yes, sir. You said there's 19 systems. Those are independent of our own, correct?
When you
Or,
say our own,
the county providing water
well, there's 19
service.
systems that service the county residents.
Including
So when we
Include.
say, we talked about the $3,000 connection fee to the water, that's
Sure.
that's that rate that we do to connect for water, okay? And then there's a fixed and variable rate for that system as well.
I guess what my specific question, like Beaches Water Company, for example, in Lusby, that's one of the 19 you're referring to?
I believe it is. There's like, if I had to put it in perspective, we have 5,400 customers on water and sewer in this county, roughly thereabouts. Okay, that's a rough order of magnitude planning number.
Sure.
Everybody else is on private.
Thank you.
Commissioners, part of the Water and Sewer Comprehensive Plan actually requires at the state level that the county actually accounts for every single permitted well, not each individual residential well, but for example, what Dominion may have, or what Exelon may have, or what the town centers may have. We account for them in our comprehensive plan. So that all goes back to the original question of, are we tracking how much water we're pulling from the aquifer? It's not simply what are we pulling at each point of entry, it's what are we pulling across the full spectrum. And Director Dull works with the geological folks to actually account for what we're doing on a larger tri-county and even quad-county area, because the aquifer is not just beneath Calvert County, and that's really left to the state. So we put a permit in, or somebody else puts a permit in. When they change that permit, it has to come back in and update the county's water and sewer comprehensive plan, which has to be consistent with the county's overall comprehensive plan. So they do track it. We never put in any commercial wells like that without permission from the state, obviously.
Thank you.
Next.
Next is storm drainage.
Kerry Doll, Public Works, one more time.
Boy, you're loving us today.
Well, I'm not done yet. I still got another one after this. But anyway, storm drainage, if cubic feet per second is essentially the measurement that we're talking about here. And I try to be as stringent on this as much as possible as far as finding actual metrics, but it seemed to be a little bit burdensome to do that. I got some feedback from my guys that may not be the best way to actually do that, because again, it's a numbers game. And I say it's a numbers game for the simple fact that it's a little bit more complicated than I'm actually able to convey to you at this point in time, okay? Cubic feet per second, so if the water's coming off of that parcel or that property that's being developed, the standard is that it leaves that property or parcel at the same way if there was no development on it. And that's why we have the stormwater management devices on the property, to make sure that the water conveys off of that property at not a higher rate than what it was currently if there was trees, grass, bushes, you name it, that was on that property. So if it's undeveloped, okay, and you go in to develop it, the water being conveyed should be at no greater velocity than what it currently, than what it is in its original state. And that's the same thing if you're gonna have one parcel, let's say you're doing one to the south, you're gonna develop it, okay, and your water is going to the south, or actually, it's actually going to, if your parcel to the south and the property to the north of it is undeveloped, when the one that gets developed to the north and its water is flowing south into that developed property, that responsibility, that individual who comes in second, is to essentially develop that parcel to where the water runoff from that parcel is no higher velocity than if it was in its original state when it was currently there with trees, wood, grass, you name it.
So that sounds really good.
Yes.
But the practicality of it is that, us included, we put in these practices, and they fail, and then it takes forever to get corrections done.
Correct.
Whether it's us, it's even us, and private developments, they just fight, so.
And this is a fight, sir, I will honestly.
Absolutely.
Oh, every day. And some of it makes zero sense, because some of it, the water table's so high that the rain itself, exceeds the pond or what have you, and there's nowhere to go. I mean, Solomon's is a great example, and I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know how much latitude you have on that, because, God, there's a piece of property down there I have wrestled with, you being the second director with, and there's still no real solution. I know what the state says, but there's nowhere to run that water.
Understood.
And MDE will implement the regulations, but when it comes time to get corrections, they lag significantly.
I will tell you, the biggest problem that we've had right now that I've seen since I've been here in the 2 years is the way that the standards have migrated from MDE to more stringent as opposed, and some of the things that we're seeing that was designed in the 90s passed all the tests, and now it's becoming a problem because of either adjacent development or something else is going on with the amount of rainfall, you name it, and it's no longer conveying the water that way it should.
But the galvanized pipes have gone beyond their life expectancy, and they
Correct.
start to fail. And when you have rain events like we had 2 years ago in August, they go.
Yes, sir, they do.
And are we utilizing proper rainfall data? In other words, when was the last time, I understand a lot of people are saying that, you know what, we're getting more and more rain each year, and it seems to be that we're getting more and more rain. Is any of that included into this?
Sir, I cannot speak intelligently about that. I would have to ask and do a little bit of research on that. to tell you
That was
the
an
truth.
intelligent answer.
Well, Kerry, you've seen, like, with the rain barrel requirements, you've seen them ask for sometimes more barrels than you can almost run across the front of the house. You know what the homeowner does with the barrel when he fills it up. That's what happens. I mean, so you know that supposedly that's the solution, or once they get the final UNO, the barrel comes out of there. So, you know, I know what MDE is saying, but it's just impractical, and I know you have to do your job and come down and tell the guy, well, I know you got 50 feet here and you need 70 feet of barrels. I mean, and in the 9,000 plants that you plant around it also, I mean, it's a nightmare. And I don't know how you, be quite honest, I don't know how you marry that up with MDE requirements, because what they're asking for is just unrealistic in some places. And everything comes back to you need room, and you just can't put all these houses on top of each other because there's nowhere for it to go.
So are we requiring an environmental site design for every project?
We go through a stormwater management plan. This goes back to where if I'm the residential and I'm disturbing less than 5,000 square feet, there is an exemption for that. If I go above it, then I have to actually plan for stormwater. One of the things that we first look at when we're looking at new development is actually the concept for stormwater management they're actually planning on doing. And there's different evolutions of that for the different sites reviews when we're actually doing those.
I just know it's a problem that's coming more and more apparent because, like you said, you know, projects were designed in the 80s and 90s, and
I will tell
40
you
years
that
old.
There are some that are resistant to actually meeting the standard, and we are trying to enforce the standard the best we can at our level, and that we get a lot of pushback on that.
And I understand a lot of their plight a lot of times, because you look at it, some of it, and it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you know, do you remember me screaming about having to put the paper down there in Solomon's and having to hire a landscaping company because that's where they wanted that paper down there to run that water a certain way? And I'm like, so we don't put paper down and the weeds grow everywhere, and then we have to hire somebody to pull the weeds out. I mean, it's ridiculous, some of it, and the water table is, I don't know the exact how high the water table is right there, but it's not deep. So I don't know where they think it's running.
We just need to make sure that we're requiring everything we can require, because,
Yes, sir.
you know, 40 years ago, those guys did what they did, and they're now laying on a beach now, and they don't want to hear from us that the system failed.
Yes, sir.
Because, buddy, it's not my problem.
Because then the citizens end up footing the bill.
That's right.
Roger.
And,
Just like the man told me.
you know, I don't know how you fix that situation, but
We get presented those every week, sir.
I know you do, because I make the phone calls. But
And
we
I'm not trying to
certainly-
sound harsh about it, but I mean, like I say, that's like Commissioner Anston said, laying on the beach somewhere, and oh well.
And they did what they were asked to do at the time.
Exactly. And the thing
Right.
is, they met the standard at the time.
That's right. So it's not entirely their fault. But we just need to make sure we do the best we can based on our topography and where we are. 'Cause we're in a fragile place. So, okay.
And without further ado, I'll transition to the last one.
Solid waste.
Okay. Okay, your transfer station that currently operates at Appeal is designed to handle 750 tons a day. Okay, the one that we are planning to upgrade to was 1,000 tons per day. All right, we're still in development on that. That basically run into a snag with the contracting piece of that because we didn't get people to sign on due to, we'll just say, the unpredictability of the market to actually haul because of the way the gas prices were going. So the people who signed up for that were very cautious and did not like that. And the one proposal we got, we did not accept because it was not advantageous for the county. So I'll go on to that now. Your current transfer station that we have at Appeal is rated 750 tons per day. It is currently operating roughly at about 52% capacity, okay? Average roughly about 390 tons per day off of that 750. Some days on Mondays, for instance, we'll get 600 tons in because it's the weekend and people do their house cleaning and things like that. It'll show up on Monday and we'll move 600 tons out of that transfer station.
The tourist.
Right. So right now, we're in a position right now where I think this is one of the healthiest things that we have currently, even if you bumped it down to 70, okay? We're probably in a good position right there. But we are still looking at moving forward and building a new transfer station, all right? And then I should have came in prepared to actually talk about landfill numbers, but we're at like, it's like, I can't remember the exact percentage of the south cell, but we have a north cell that we are currently have not tapped into yet at Appeal. So we're at, we're doing okay right there. Okay, I'm not saying we're doing great, but right now we are moving our solid waste out of Calvert County and taking it to Prince George super landfill. And we do receive solid waste from other counties as well and other customers that come to us.
So it's a transfer station.
Yes, sir.
And we bring it up once in a while, but we should be looking at composting to
Thank
see
you.
if that is a viable, we just can't keep hauling trash and dumping it in the ground when
Sir,
some of
we
it
are-
could be composted and used for,
One of the
beneficial.
requirements coming into '23, and the guys were already working on it anyway, but we're moving it to the front burner to get it all figured out, is that we are designing ways to increase revenue for the enterprise fund. That includes the composting, that also includes using the sludge off of the wastewater treatment plant, making a biochar out of it, things that we can use and sell on the market at a later date. And these are all things that are actually going to eliminate the amount of solid waste that actually goes through the transfer station and then on to King George. So we're working on being more self-sufficient with that. And at the same time, increasing revenue for the solid waste division.
and that should be, a major focus because, it's just not about having bigger and more landfills. It's
Absolutely.
about figuring out other ways to better utilize
Yes, sir.
those
And
resources.
to include the recycling component of it as well.
Well, I
Yes,
think we're doing pretty good at recycling, aren't we?
We're doing all right. Yes, sir.
I do my part.
Until they change the, we'll say the metrics. So right now, based on current metrics from MDE, we're doing just fine.
And this is no question, but there was recent legislation, actually 4 years ago, 5 years ago, about recycling. And I know moving forward, it's a phased-in approach that we have to reach certain thresholds. So this is another example I mentioned earlier, and look, I'm definitely advocating for it, but it's state legislation, that's all.
Yes, sir. And then, like I said, we're rated at the lower end of a smaller county size. I think our number is that we have to be at like 32% of solid waste has to be recycled. And that includes also the businesses that are in the county itself. So the Walmarts, the TJ Maxx, their recycling numbers get factored into that.
Okay, moving on. Public safety.
Okay, I can leave now. Thank you, gentlemen.
That's enough.
So public safety is proposing to split it into two, first being EMS consideration to establish criteria which would take into account anticipated increased calls that would be from the development and to include a distance from the EMS facility. And Stanley Harris is here if you have any questions on that one. All right, the fire prevention, we currently have Jim Richardson as part of our technical evaluation group that reviews, and subdivision evaluation group that reviews projects coming in. And since he's part of the process reviewing Chapter 44 of fire prevention, we feel that they are they're being reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and they're already really part of the adequate public facilities without even knowing it.
So
But that's a huge piece because
people need to understand, we just went to career EMS. That's directly related to growth.
It is, absolutely.
It's call volume,
Yes.
and the technical training that's required to participate in EMS is crazy. to
And it's
ask
going
people to
higher
do
and higher
today.
each year.
And so people need to understand, this ain't because we don't have volunteers. This is because we don't have enough volunteers to keep those ambulances on the road every day, all day long.
So
And
me and
that's-
Director Willis sitting at a meeting, and I said, you know, what you're proposing could require a couple of full-time EMTs, and he come up with a number that we're already getting. I said, we are? Based on what? That's the mentality I'm talking about. Like, well, I'm already writing you a check. You're not. You're paying property tax. And every business has an impact, has a footprint. And just to say, well, that's the taxpayer's job, it's not. If my business required a full-time EMT unit, then I need to pay for it. You know, and that's what, you know, just gets lost in the mix. Just like Commissioner Hans just said, I don't know the exact dollar amount to put a brand-new team on, but
It's about $1 million.
the ambulance itself is close to what, 4? Just there?
$450.
You know, and that's just one team. What if there's 2 or 3 people at a time? I mean, so all these things, and it's, I mean, it sounds like I'm being negative on this, but it's all true cost. And
But it's a trade. You know, we have an area of our county that has significant retirement community, assisted living, but at the end of the day, you're talking about property taxes, it's a trade. You know, we have younger citizens that have kids in school, and we know how costly that is. So
Right.
it's a trade. You have one generation that's utilizing significant service from here, and another citizenry that's requiring a significant requirement on this service. So at the end of the day, it's
you're
property tax, and you balance out between your different citizens groups that are out there. So
because there's a
We're-
need for on both sides, and it's just, but it's like to say it's mitigating to where it's within reason.
Where we actually had numbers on some of the previous stuff as far as percentages go, I really look forward to hearing from Stanley and Jim and everybody over at Public Safety to find out what they think the criteria that we need to establish is. Because right now, it's to establish criteria. And I'm excited to see it, and thanks for volunteering to do all that work.
did you really volunteer?
Stanley's not smiling.
He keeps pointing to Jim. He's figured out his strategy. So, well, we look forward to that because it
Yes.
is going to be an issue as we continue to grow.
Yes. So next is law enforcement. The sheriff's office is proposing to do the analysis on 1.5 deputies per 1,000 residents. And so that would be when facilities are adequate. And as the sheriff's department reported this morning, they currently have 172 deputies, which is well over the required 1.5.
We're well over the required.
Yes.
Remember that.
Which means we can make the requirement higher, or?
That kind of reminds me of how many guidance counselors per student. It's kind
Uh-oh.
of crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and the dominoes on that, how many officers, now footage, state's attorneys, you know, the whole, so every single, Commissioner Nutter taught me 8 years ago, when I said, wow, they're giving us that building, he goes, nobody's giving you anything. It's insurance, it's upkeep, so that's why, you know, you question everything.
I'm glad to see that.
Okay. So that is the end of the 2019 recommendations. While we were meeting with the departments, we thought perhaps you would want to consider adequate public facilities for parks. And so Director Nazal came up with some numbers, and she's here if you have questions.
We don't have no money.
You got no money. You said you weren't asking.
I'm gonna
Whenever
save
I
us some
see her,
money.
I see dollars.
Every time. What is it, $1 million?
It's in my
a minute?
eyes.
Who
Shannon
said it's
Nazal,
$1
Director
million
of Parks
a
and
minute?
Recreation. So one thing that I would say about this, as far as the numbers go, they're basically placeholders at this point. We still need to look further into what our existing dwellings are based on multifamily, single-family units, on what that would be allocated to. Because even just using the 1,000 square foot per single-family unit, that only equates to approximately 700, little over 700 acres of parks, and we currently have a little over 2,300 acres of parks.
We're good.
So,
You don't need anything.
contrary to what comes up in the Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan, where folks are looking for additional facilities, additional opportunities for recreation within the county. So I do think that these, the numbers need to be adjusted, but I think this is a very good start to look at those type of units and just calculating the numbers a little bit better to see where that leads, as well as potentially offering a fee in lieu provision to help pay for park space that may need to be added in the case that we're at capacity.
While I was looking at this over the weekend, there's a couple of points that I'd like to bring out. In the first sentence of the description, 1,000 square feet of public recreation space, I would strongly encourage that we insert free use recreation space, because I don't think we should have parkland or park areas that are pay use areas included into this matrix. That's the first point. Second point I noticed is, to me, this almost seems inverse to what would make sense for me. For example, a single-family dwelling typically has recreation space immediately outside of it on its own land. So someone who, I know my kids growing up, when they wanted to go out and play, they went out and played in the yard. Whereas people that live in an apartment on the second floor or something like that, when their kids want to go out and play, they have to find a location to take them. So to have the apartment dwelling unit only require half as much as a single family, I would almost think that it would make more sense to have the entire ratios turned upside down, to where an apartment would require double the amount of space as a single family dwelling, because a single family dwelling already has some of it by itself. So food for thought when it comes back.
I do want to mention for residential developments for multifamily, there are requirements in our zoning ordinance to provide small parks
Gotcha.
and play areas. So you
I'm
have
just
to
thinking,
consider that as well.
when the grandson comes over to the house and hangs out at the house for the weekend, he never leaves the yard. Either he's in the yard, he's down in the creek, he's out in the woods, he's doing something. When he goes over to one of his other relatives who's in an apartment, he's in the apartment, however, goes to at no less than 3 Calvert County parks every single weekend while he's staying in the apartment. So I see it firsthand. I see it when the kids are in the apartments. They do go to more parks than when they have in the houses, at least in my world.
So across from Adams Ribs, that big subdivision, was that a requirement that the community had to put that park in back there?
Yes, they
It
have a
was.
community center. I believe they have a community pool.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
there were
Yeah, that's nice.
recreation requirements. Yes. And that is the last topic for discussion. So I think we have a lot of direction today. If there's anything else you want to add, you could let us know, but we'll be back with some, we'll move forward with drafting and bringing back options as well as other analysis.
Thank you, Director.
Thank
Cook.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
staff.
Shannon.
Thank you.
Let me see. Next item on the agenda is another work session with Department of Planning and Zoning. Welcome back, Mary Beth.
Thank you. And now I get to say good afternoon, Commissioners.
Yeah.
With me is Jenny Plummer-Welker. I'm Mary Beth Cook, Director of Planning and Zoning. Jenny
Good
Plummer-Welker,
afternoon.
our long-range planner. This is a continuation of our June 7th work session where we talked about making changes to the comprehensive plan regarding any expansions to the town centers. So we narrowed it down to coming back with Prince Frederick, Solomons, and Lesby. So we've prepared some maps for discussion for you today.
If we can move on to, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jenny Plummer-Welker, Long Range Planner with Calvert County Planning and Zoning. For this slide, I just want to note that the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan that was adopted in 2019 identifies 9 town centers, the 2 municipalities, North Beach and Chesapeake Beach, and then the 7 town centers that come under the county commissioner's purview. Dunkirk, Owings, Huntingtown, Prince Frederick, St. Leonard, Lusby, and Solomons. Next slide, please. At the board's work session earlier this month, on June 7th, the board decided to pursue amending the comprehensive plan to remove the expansion area in its entirety from Huntingtown Town Center, to keep the expansions proposed for Dunkirk, Owings, and St. Leonard Town Centers. And then we're with you today to continue the discussion for Prince Frederick, Lusby, and Solomons. Next slide, please. So we'll first talk about Prince Frederick. On the left side is a close-up of the future land use plan from the 2019 comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan discusses expanding Prince Frederick in two phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 would be the land that's zoned around the town center that's either employment center or rural community district. And then Phase 2 is further to the west and includes a sliver on the south side. The map on the right shows the expansion of Prince Frederick developed based upon our last work session. So I'll go to in detail. It also shows the base map is the current zoning. It shows the town center boundary in red and the current town center area in purple. So it's that purple with the dashed purple lines. So the expansion on the northwest side, the commissioners discussed, so there's an area just south of Stokely Road and just west or adjacent to the Prince Frederick Boulevard. And so that the commissioners discussed bringing into the expansion, but removing all the other expansion area from Phase 2. So that includes the green hatched area on the west side, both north and south of Maryland 231. And that also includes the small area between Maryland 24 and 765 on the south side of the town center. As noted at your last work session, the Planning Commission is currently working on the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan update with the assistance of staff. Any proposed amendments to the county comprehensive plan would need to be incorporated into the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan update. Next slide, if we could turn to Lusby.
Can we go back to Prince?
Oh, sure. Yes, we can.
We should talk about Prince Frederick while we're here.
Yep.
So,
We do have a close-up if you want to talk further
that's what I
about
was-
that
yeah.
area.
You have a close-up?
So
Yes.
if we could move on to, I believe, slide 7 or 8. Next slide, please, there. So this is the close-up of the
I don't have 7 or
northwest
8.
side of Prince Frederick. This is an additional slide that's not included in your packet.
Oh, okay. That's
No.
okay. I can follow up here and
It was-
right here.
This slide was made this morning.
Oh,
And so on the left side is a parcel that is completely outside the town center. It's approximately 92 acres according to the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. The parcel to the right, there, the bottom, it's actually, it looks like it's composed of two parcels within the tax parcel. So it seems to be split zoned. The southern portion is not in the town center, and that's approximately 44 acres. That's the portion that's in that light color. The northern portion of that parcel is located in the town center. The total parcel with the state assessment, I believe, is a 60-some acres.
68 acres.
Yes.
So that's a single deed.
It's a single deed that splits out two parcels. And it's under the same ownership.
And it's split zone.
With what zones?
Town center, the purple, and the rural community district, which is that lighter color. And if you note the parcel on the left, the 92-acre parcel, it includes a portion of the Prince Frederick Boulevard on it. I mean, there's a portion on the right side of Prince Frederick Boulevard that's a portion of that parcel. But it's outside town center. We have
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When I originally brought this up a couple weeks ago, I really liked the concept of having these areas available for employment center. And I believe that's what my thought process was employment center and light light industrial, light manufacturing, something like that, a location where we could have employment areas, not significant and/or whatever additional residential. That's the reason why I brought it up. I'm up for any discussions at this point, as long as, if it's gonna end up being full-blown residential, I'd just soon leave it out. But if we have to have it inside town center in order to have employment center areas or something like that, I'm game for that. But I don't know how that works.
So we could potentially bring it into the town center, and it would be when we are writing the zoning ordinance that we decide what type of uses. We could make it a sub-area and call it whatever we decide to call it. But that would be where the regulations would come in to what you desire to be able to be built on that property.
So, Mary Beth, since right now it's not in there and it's a potential or not even, could we leave it out and then at some juncture, if that became a viable option that a board wanted to do? I mean, because, right now you bring it in, you already kind of set it on a path to, like Commissioner Galway said, of unknown. I mean, if we leave it out and then if the opportunity arises someday, we get all this APF straight the way we like it, then maybe entertain it, but
It would take a change to the comprehensive plan, then a change to the master plan, then a change to the zoning ordinance. So it would be,
cumbersome.
yes, but not undoable. It's possible.
Another option would be to identify it for future town center, but not bring it into, it could be a much reduced phase two. Rather than all the way out towards the college and Stafford Road, phase two could be identified in the comprehensive plan as this northwestern portion. And then should at a future time, go through and either amend the Prince Frederick plan or identify that as a future expansion also, but only through the zoning. Bring it in through the amendments to the zoning map for the county, because both the county zoning map would need to be amended to show it being part of town center, and then the town center map would need to be amended to show what kind of zone, what kind of district it's in.
Does that open the door for high density, though?
Not, the commissioners control that with the zoning. You have control over the zoning. Our future board has a control over the zoning.
Right.
It would open up the possibilities of it.
And I know 3 rules a day, so if that's, then I don't want to take anything to chance, to be quite honest. I mean, because that's a
So-
big portion. That's a big lot.
As someone that is not returning, I preface it accordingly. Under current zoning, 1 mile radius,
Yes, under current zoning, so that area is identified on the zoning map as rural community district. So without the use of TDRs, the density is 1 dwelling unit per 4 acres. Within the 1 mile radius, under current zoning, what it could do today is within the 1 mile, with the use of TDRs, it could be 1 unit per 1 acre.
If it goes to town center, it could be as high as 14 with the 50-50 consideration, correct?
That depends on what the commissioners do as far as designing and writing the zoning. You could say it's in town center, but we're only going to allow 1 unit per acre.
Commissioners, if I may, I think the biggest misconception is that when you incorporate anything into the town center, that it automatically is high density. The reality is nothing happens until you, the commissioners, decide what you want the density and the zoning to be. It can be 50-50 with 1 unit per acre, 14 units per acre. The other 50% could be commercial. You could make it all commercial. You could make it residential at 5 units per acre. You could do whatever it is that this board thought was necessary as you move forward. But it's really up to you. It's not the vision. The vision of the comp plan is to provide you options for the future within the zoning ordinance. That's what it does. It doesn't mean high density. It means options for the board. And you're mentioning whether a future board would change the density. If you put it in the town center today, a future board could come in and change the density. Well, guess what? Don't put it in the town center, and a future board can come in and change the density. That's just the way that the zoning ordinance supports the comp plan vision.
I would like to, oh, go ahead, sir.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
I would like to add to Mr. Willis's comments is that the master plan and the comprehensive plan control. So the zoning can't be against what the master plan or comprehensive plan say, because then it would be inconsistent, and the state has a consistency requirement that zoning must be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So you could state what you want. This area is only identified for like employment or retail, and then the zoning would need to follow that.
Well, I brought it up for discussion a couple weeks ago, and the more discussion, and that's a great part about bringing the ideas forward and having the conversations and the discussions about it. I'd be all for leaving those two parcels, the 44 and the
92.
the 44 and the 92, leaving those in the Phase 2 areas originally described and ixnaying the Phase 2, and just leaving it as is for this point in time and dealing with it at a later point if and when a future board decides it, taking it off the table. Because we were talking about eliminating Phase 2, and that was originally part of Phase 2.
If we can move forward to the next slide, please, because this shows it in context. So on the right, it has the two parcels up near Stokely, and then the Phase 2 that would be eliminated is the green hatched area along Maryland 231 on the north and south side, and then also the sliver of land between Maryland 765 and Maryland 24.
So Commissioner Gadway, you were proposing to add that to the hatched area to take it off
That's where
the
it
table.
originally would have been if we,
Right. If we would have eliminated all of Phase 2.
right, if we would have eliminated all of Phase 2, that would have been hash marked out already.
That's correct.
And because of the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about the possibility of employment center, this or that, it's unhashed at this point.
Right.
So we started out this discussion back also because it was properties that actually contact the loop road.
Correct. Yes.
One of them does in the small corner, correct?
What happened was we didn't realize they were two big tracks.
Right.
That makes it a little harder.
130 acres is harder to swallow.
Harder to digest.
And that's my fear is that, you know, it's too valuable to someone that, I mean, I know 3 votes rule the day, and who knows what a future board would do. But the more steps that they have to do it public, you know, the more it gives people a chance to see it. Because things happen at times, and it happens in a blink, and someone says, I didn't know. You know, so the more steps sometimes somebody has to go through that the community really knows, okay, this is what's going to happen. And I don't know if that changes the mind of someone up there, but I think this county wants to stay rural in its way of life. I think it guarantees that person ain't back in 4 years, so if they can tie it up, maybe the next board comes in and has a little more sense.
Just based on numbers, and at 136 acres, and I know that that's not where it's at right now, I'm just looking worst case scenario. 136 acres, 14 dwelling units per acre, 50-50 rule kicks in, that's 7, which puts us, that area of the 136 acres would put us at 952 apartments.
I think the consensus is to leave it out.
Yes.
Very good.
So there's another chunk. Keep going south. There's another chunk in white, the odd-shaped chunk. Just on the north side of 231, between the green hashes and the purple hashes. Why is that white?
That is Employment Center, part of Phase 1.
Okay.
So I believe the consensus was to keep Phase 1.
Okay.
And we were just, yes.
And that's Phase 1 on the south side. So the only
Correct.
property in discussion today is those 2 tracks on the north side.
Correct.
Okay. Well, you have direction. Solomon's and Leslie.
Thank you.
All right.
If we can move back to, I believe, slide 4? No, sorry, 5. So next to Lesby and Solomon's, the map on the left is the county comprehensive plan map. It shows the double hatched area between Lesby and Solomon's, and notes in the comprehensive plan that is a potential expansion area to be determined at a later date. The map on the right is based upon the discussion at the board's meeting earlier this June. So on the top right side of Lusby, top right of the map, so the north side of Lusby is an area that's zoned I-1 that includes the Patuxent Business Park, another property that's zoned I-1, and the state's park and ride lot. So I believe the commissioners asked to keep that one as is. Moving down to the southern portion of Lusby, there is the hatched area, which we discussed last time, which includes on the right side, and I apologize, the hatching covers it up a bit, but on the right side of that southern hatched area is employment center zoning. And then the line was carried to the left, to the west, to go over 765 and Maryland 24, and include the properties as a direct, east-west line. The area that is in green hatch is the remainder of the land that is double hatched on the left, so that area would be proposed to be removed from any potential expansion area. So no expansion for the area in green. Moving on to Solomon's, on the right side, the eastern side of the Dow Peninsula, there is a green hatched area. For the comprehensive plan, that was a proposed expansion area of Solomon's. With this, it would be proposed to be removed from the expansion area, so that portion of the Dow Peninsula would not be included into Solomon's at a future date. I will note that the future land use plan map does not include the piers of Solomon's, whereas the current zoning map does. So there's if you notice, there's some slight little sections that have both a purple line and a dashed purple line. Those are the piers. So we might need to make some minor adjustments to Solomon's when it comes time to updating that master plan. We really don't need to include the piers in the zoning.
Commissioner Hart, are we good?
So we're not doing the green.
We're not doing the
No
green.
green.
And so there's no major expansion.
There is expansion to,
Only to the north.
Just
where
to the
the
just to
Patuxent Business
PBP.
Park.
Just to PBP.
Not just PPP, that's
There's another
on the
little
south
piece
side
up there.
also. So the purple hatch area on the south side is the employment center zoning currently.
So if PBP's on my right and I'm heading towards into Lusby, you're talking that small section there, which is that's all residential anyway.
no, it would be to the south, the hatched area, after you pass through, if you're traveling south, after you pass through what is currently Lusby Town Center. We are proposing to include the employment center down to Southern Connector.
Over by the
If I
A's, the
may?
field
Down
there.
by States.
Yeah, across the road. from
Down by
States.
States.
And that's that Dominion
Yes.
Behind the
property.
funeral home. No, it doesn't.
There's
Oh,
a
you're on the
church.
funeral home side?
funeral- Yes,
Funeral.
Oh, on the funeral.
yes.
So the proposed expansion does not include the houses that are currently not in the town center. So there's a portion along 765 that would remain outside the town center. So it's the Patuxent Business Park in its entirety.
Right.
There's another parcel north of that, I believe that's the storage units.
Right.
And then there's the state park and ride lot on the corner.
Which the park and ride's already,
Yeah.
you can't develop that. And then you're saying, and the park and ride, right, that's, okay, so it's just basically, okay, so I get all that piece down there. Why would we develop over by the funeral home though? Why would we do that?
This portion of the zoning currently is employment district. And the intent for the comprehensive plan was to bring in the employment district land into the town center.
But that's not high density, that's,
Right now, that's not high density, and you could control the zoning on what it is. It could remain an employment center, employment,
Sub-area.
but it's back to the same trick bag like Prince Frederick was though?
Could be.
So then I don't want that in there for that potential of that. I want to make it more difficult one day where somebody has to, and I'm just being honest, because Lusby's already tight, there's already one road there, and we've already seen the proposed high density, and if they can just turn around and pop on the other side, and just expand, I'm not in favor of that.
I defer to Commissioner Hart.
I'll defer to Commissioner Hart as well.
Commissioner Weems?
I think you have direction.
we do have direction, but what I'd like to add is the intent, the current comprehensive plan does not have any employment center zone described because the intent was to eliminate it. And so in the other areas of,
So what are you gonna call it?
so that's a great question. It sounds like the direction is to keep it as an employment center.
We'll
What's
figure that out.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that now, I think a couple of boards ago, gave guidance that the employment center never really worked out. If you look at the employment centers around the county, it never attracted growth to it as an employment center option. So the guidance was to staff was to incorporate those areas into the town centers because it's almost, depending on how they're located, quasi-town center anyway. So that's why most of them are incorporated into the town centers. The green area there, in this particular case, the reason it was incorporated is that that entire section there feeds off of the Solomon's water treatment
But they
facility.
did that to open it up to residential development.
Well, they did that.
That's why they did that. That's why they did that. It's
They did
just
what?
like the 50-50. They took it out of economic development and turned it into town center to open it up for residential development. The ECD or whatever you called it had to be the 50-50. They took away the 50-50. What'd you call it? You had some word for it.
ECTC.
ECT.
Oh,
That was not
ECTC.
Yeah.
That was,
It was not ECTC.
No.
The employment center was always intended for some sort of employment office, very restricted residential. As Mr. Willis notes, that it's not been it's not met the aspirations that it was intended to.
Right.
In Prince Frederick, if we could move to the slide behind this one, the earlier one, the Prince Frederick, thank you. So the employment center that's on the northeast of the town center, that one has developed, and that includes the
It's the doctor's office. and
thank you,
Mary
yes,
and-
the medical
yeah,
arts center.
yeah.
But that's been one of the few employment centers that has actually,
been developed.
yeah.
But that 50-50 rule held it back.
I don't recall the 50-50. I would have to go back and
Because
look.
we just reinstated it.
We did.
No, that was for the
That
Prince
was-
Frederick Town Center.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
In the village
Perfect.
district, yes.
No, that 50/50, I thought we instituted that countywide in all the town centers.
No.
No, it's only Prince
It's
Frederick.
only in Prince Frederick.
It's only Prince Frederick.
Okay.
And we had only removed it from the village district and put it
Right.
back.
Okay.
So Solomon's, we just have to figure out, lesbian, I mean, we'll have to figure out something to call it.
Yes, yes.
'Cause I'm not cutting ribbons for Slesby.
Right,
No.
right.
We could propose leaving it employment center and then propose writing the zoning to be a more robust employment center.
Rural Employment Center.
Okay?
It's called a
REC.
farm. Are we good?
We're good?
Yes,
Nope.
because if we go to 2 slides past this one, it's just conclusion. Please provide staff with direction.
We did that.
Thank you very much.
Because we
Thank
got
you.
places to be.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. I know it's a pain in the butt, so here we are. So that concludes business. We have public comment.
The board adopted resolution in 1989 intending to maintain the order and decorum of the governmental process. A copy of that is found here to my right. The Ethics Commission has asked us to remind speakers at public comment that if you're a lobbyist, you are required to register in advance. Lobbyists are those that seek to influence public policy. The floor has been open for public comment from persons in the meeting room who may begin making their way to the microphone, then those joining virtually. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function or press star 9 if you're calling in. Virtual speakers will be identified by the last 4 digits of their phone number or their screen name and unmuted one at a time. If necessary, you may also unmute yourself by pressing star 6. Before beginning your comments, all speakers must identify themselves and whether speaking as the individual, where you will be allocated 2 minutes, or the designated representative of a group, where you will be allocated 5 minutes. Anybody here to speak?
I'm Myra Gowans, and I'm speaking on behalf of Calvert Citizens United. I just want to let you gentlemen know that we are going to the Supreme Court of Maryland on September 12th. We have our date. The Supreme Court only takes about 12% of anything under a writ of certiorari. I know that you're doing all this because you need to do it, you have to do it, it's imperative, it's part of your job. But if the finding of facts come back and the citizens win both lawsuits, there's one in the lower court right now, which is ready to be released, and then there's our case, which will be heard in the Supreme Court of Maryland. If the finding of facts come back in our favor, this is moot. There is no comprehensive plan. The state of Maryland, Mr. McCord's office, will not accept an illegally approved comprehensive plan. I just want you all to know that. And anything that attaches to it is the fruit of the poisonous tree. And those are the master plans. And I want you to be aware of that. Also, let me explain something to you. Let me just run this by you and you can think about it. They want to, in the plan, the comp plan, they wanted to relieve traffic on the main road of Route 24 into Prince Frederick. And if you read your plan and you know about development and you know about national developers, what they want to do is build a new Route 4 around Stokely Road, and then in the back of the hospital, they want to go down so you can pop out on Dares Beach Road. There is no way that you gentlemen will be able to stop the growth when it starts down there. And that's what they want to do. Even Planning and Zoning came up and stated at the Planning Commission meeting, what we want to do is we want to put commercial on the bottom and put condos and apartments on top. And that is the look you have in Crofton, Northern Virginia, and Annapolis. Once you start that and you put a plan into effect that allows that type of zoning, the zoning can be changed incrementally on and on and on. This is something that must be seriously considered before we have two Route 4s. We've got one that goes off into 231 down Stokely and then goes out Prince Frederick Boulevard and pops out near the college. That is what the builders and developers will demand, the national builder and developer. So I want you all to think about that. I think you've done a very good job here today, keeping things at bay, especially in lieu of the fact that the plan comes up for discussion with the Supreme Court of Maryland on the 12th of September. It's the first time there's been two cases in the Supreme Court of Maryland in Calvert County District. Thanks.
Anyone else? Seeing,
My name is Bob Estes. I'm representing Friends of Hunting Creek today. And I'm all for the expanded requirements for adequate public facilities, but I'm not so sure that that's exactly the best way to control development, just by hoping that when development bumps up against those, they're stymied. I'd like to read you something that a friend of mine, associate, wrote for me, and this is what she had to say. Ever since the adoption of the 1997 Calvert County Comprehensive Plan, the county has maintained a policy of working towards limiting residential build-out to 37,000 households. That figure was determined on the basis of a thorough analysis of the county physical and fiscal capacity to accommodate growth. Factors such as highway capacity, environmental constraints, and costs associated with providing and maintaining high-quality schools and other facilities were used to arrive at the figure of 37,000. The policy was reviewed and officially reconfirmed in both the 2004 and 2010 comp plans. However, all mention of build-out was dropped without explanation from the 2019 comprehensive plan. I would want you to perhaps consider having some language put in to whatever comp plan you have that explicitly is designed to control growth, as opposed to bumping into these adequate public facility wall. But do keep on going with adequate public facilities. Okay, and by the way, bravo on the traffic discussion. I think you all know that we're a spiky traffic situation as opposed to traffic all the time in every direction like what happens in the more urban areas. So we need to look at, like I think you all said, look at what's real here and what we want. When I heard some of the adequate public facilities, they talk about average loads, but the world isn't average. The world sometimes has spikes. So my question is average enough, or should you also consider those spikes? Because let me tell you, spikes in sewage, that's not good. That can often lead to things that you don't anticipate. So you need to consider also what the maximum allowables might be as opposed to averages. That's a sort of an engineering thing, and your engineers will understand that without any trouble. Yeah, let's see. And I'd also like to propose that you consider getting a status of all of these adequate public facilities once a year. I think would probably be a good amount of time every year to see where you stand on these with a method that you all agree with that allow you to compare year to year, so you can see trends. Because you don't want to say, oh, we're below, we're below, we're below. Uh-oh. You want to know where the trends are. And by the way, we do not currently mimic natural rainfall distribution back into the watershed. As my favorite Calvert Hills will show you, they concentrated it into a funnel, threw it overboard, created an awful lot of sediment. That's not the way the original land looked like. It allowed the water to infiltrate into the land, and the creek there was barely a creek at all. So beware when they say that they're doing that. And also, by the way, as I've mentioned to you before, the actual rainfall in Calvert County over the last 16 years is not what is being used, and the rainfall amounts that the NOAA 14 NOAA Atlas 14 data, it's well below. Atlas 14, for instance, might say you'll get one of these storms, these 5-inch storms, every 10 years. You look at the actual data, and this is high-quality data, and you might see 2 or 3 of those storms in 10 years. Doesn't sound like much, but that's just one of the examples. And by the way, storms don't just happen over 24 hours. The bad storms take maybe 2 days, so you need to look at that as well if you really, really want to come up with a robust system. Oh, and by the way, I don't normally talk about solid waste, but it's really difficult to hit those once a year, twice a year hazardous waste days at the facilities. Could we do something to maybe increase those a little bit, or have a better way of, because you know what happens to those hazardous wastes if they miss once a day? Yeah, we don't want that. Make it a little bit easier, maybe it would happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? No. Ms. Elyard, if you would please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and whether you're speaking as an individual or as the designated representative of a group.
Hi, my name is Lauren Elyard. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm a resident of Wasby. I would just like to thank all of the members of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners for signing the official proclamation declaring June to be LGBTQIA Pride Month in Calvert County. It was really great to read that proclamation because it lets it be known that our county does aim to be a place where differences are celebrated and all should be able to call Calvert County home, quote, without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, or hatred based upon race, ethnicity, religion, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, mental or physical disability, and to be supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders, end quote. In a time when the LGBTQIA community is up against attacks to our rights and our very personhood, having this solidarity from our elected officials really does mean a lot. So again, I want to thank big thank you to Kelly McConkey, Mike Hart, Steve Weems, Buddy Hintz, and Chris Gadway for all celebrating and recognizing the LGBTQIA community here in Calvert County and making a clear statement that hate will have no home here. Thank you.
That is all the speakers.
Thank you. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Hart.
Most of us, I believe, attended the Juneteenth celebration at JPP. That was a nice event. Had some really good speakers. I love sitting there hearing history of the county. I can't hear that enough. I'm a big history buff, so I love hearing that. And then the Farm Bureau had their picnic. I don't think you can get better food than what comes off a farm. I don't think that's possible. So that was really nice. And I just want to wish everybody a safe and healthy, happy July 4th. Try to spend some time with family, and that's it.
Commissioner McConkey.
Ditto to Mike Hart. Attended the same events he did. And tonight is the last forum before the commissioner race. So if you're not doing anything, you can either show up or tune in.
Thank you. Commissioner Gadway.
Jefferson Patterson Park was great on Saturday. Good food all the way around, some good proclamations. We had fun down there. The Gray Ray American Legion Post, I believe, got awarded their 75 year, right?
Yeah.
75th anniversary of continuous service for the Gray Ray Legion Post down on Sixes Road. They were given a proclamation there as well. This Saturday, I had the opportunity to attend the Amateur Radio Field Day down at Brooms Island. That is when all the amateur radio operators, many people call them ham operators, around all of North America get together on the same day, same times for a 24-hour period and set up their equipment off-grid, whether it be by solar or generator or whatever the case. They do not plug any of it in anywhere across North America, and it's really interesting. Back in the day when I was in the service, we used to be able to communicate verbally and by audio only. However, now they can actually send emails, they can send pictures, they can send all that stuff across shortwave, which was just phenomenal to see. So kudos to them for doing such a great job, for being the backup to if something does bad happen. Calvert County Farm Bureau on Saturday had a great meal, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Weems.
Well, I want to express my condolences to the friends and family of Kathy Bowen Carroll, and I want to congratulate Randy Smith. He was inducted into the Maryland State Firemen's Association Hall of Fame. Did you want to elaborate on that, sir? You're welcome to.
Not today.
All right.
Thank you.
No. And if I may be so bold, I'd like to have him come in.
Give him a proclamation.
I agree.
So, yes.
Lifetime of service.
Absolutely. Yes. Good man. And his wife is wonderful, Miss Renee. I will, yes. And that's all I have.
Thank you. So once again, I'll remind everybody, early voting starts next week, the 7th through the 14th. 3 locations, Lusby, Prince Frederick, and Owings. And today's the last day you can change your party affiliation before time to vote. We won't be with you next week because we'll be on vacation, so I'm sure some of us will see you out early voting. Other than that, Commissioner Weems, we have someplace to be, and I need a motion.
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion to recess to executive session pursuant to 3-305B7 to consult and counsel regarding legal advice.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, to go into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everyone have a great day.